Welcome to the midweek edition of the AM show right here on Joy News, your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Today is also the last day of January, so it makes a good time for reflection on your week, on the year so far and on the month. My name is Sweetie Abochi and I welcome you to the 31st of January 2024. Now, in today's edition of the show, of course, I'll bring you the news. And right after, we have the news review with Benjamin Akakpo. He'll be joined by political scientist and director of Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asasante. He'll be our guest. Now, after that, we bring the AM Sports. Muftan Abela Abdullahi will present a segment bringing you all the updates in the world of sports. And then we get to the big stories. Now, Ghana ranked 70th. Out of 180 countries in terms of corruption, per the latest Corruption Perception Index released by Transparency International. The country scored 43 out of a possible 100, which has been a score since 2020. We discuss all that with a host of guests. We have first Dr. Ishmael Nidodu. He's a diplomat and human development expert. Then we have the senior strategy advisor to the UN, African government and bilateral agencies, Dr. John Osae Kwapong, who's also a CDD fellow. And then Martin Pebu, the lawyer and human rights activist, who's also joining us. And then Kofi Isaac Ejay, who's a data analyst here at Join You. So we have a host of things coming up within the hour. Also, we'll tell you about the junior spellers on the Spelling Bee contest, what they're up to, how they got so far in the competition, and then we'll come your way with AM Business, courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. In this episode, government says it is working to establish a refinery for manganese produced in Ghana soon. According to the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Jinapor, government in collaboration with Ghana Manganese Company has started engagement and processes to explore various avenues to add value to manganese in the country. So stay tuned from now till 10 a.m. We'll come your way and then we open the phone lines for you to have your say. Welcome to the AM show. Let's settle now for the news. This is the AM News, now the news in detail. Let's begin with unpaid loans and unearned salaries by health workers currently on Exodus make up a chunk of irregularities at the Health Ministry and the Ghana Health Service when they appeared before the Public Accounts Committee on Tuesday. The ministry took turn as the committee to answer questions on violations pointed out in the Auditor General's report for 2024. It also emerged that at least 3 out of these health workers have been referred to the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, and Interpol to assist with retrieval of the funds. My colleague James Aveji was at the committee sitting and filed this report.
The Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service appeared before the Public Account Committee on day 2 of the committee sitting. Procurement breaches, unearned salaries and unserviced bonds were some of the several irregularities cited in the Auditor General's report for 2022. Now, in an instance involving the National Blood Center, Chairman of the committee, James Kluche Aveji, referred management of the Blood Center to the Attorney General for prosecution over some 130,000 procurement breaches.
The next infraction is uncompetitive procurement. So there is a challenge at that office.
Yes, serious.
Where we are doing restrictive tendering without seeking approval. If you want to do procurement, instead of looking for at least a minimum of 3 invoices or quotations, that's one thing you fail to do. And this one, we don't have any option than to refer you to the Attorney General for prosecution. So we are doing our part. You have breached the procurement law. So when you are prosecuted, the judges will take a decision on that. So clerk, take note on that.
Member of the committee and member of parliament for North Diroxin, Nelson Dapamekpo, who was clearly not happy with several of such procurement breaches that characterized the sitting today, requested that the chairman as well as the Ghana Audit Service get a bit tougher with punishment to such offenses, including prison terms.
For me, even the rectification doesn't resolve the issue. So you need to take this matter seriously. It appears that procurement breaches are simply being glossed over and being treated with kid gloves. It's a serious provision that should guide you. So, Chairman, even the auditors, in giving recommendations, they should have recourse to this provision. Thank you.
Yeah, we know they've been making a recommendation that the sanctions under the law should apply.
It also emerged at the sitting today that apparently some nurses or health workers who have left the country to seek greener pastures or to further their education outside the country have left with loans and unearned salaries which they haven't paid. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumar Boaji, explains how they are trying to retrieve some of these monies.
Damien Inso Ayeni is currently, we believe, is in China. We managed to reach him. It's not paid. So we tried to place embargo on the guarantor's salary, but the court is demanding, the bank demands a court order, and we are working on making sure that we retrieve the money from the guarantor.
Okay. Unfortunately, we never get anything in writing from them.
So when was the last time you visited them? So that you're able to respond to this question intelligently.
So, I have to confess, it was last year.
Last year?
It was last year.
January or February or December?
Around November. I don't have the exact date.
And what is the update from Yoko?
There's nothing specific for. Sorry, I have to find the right words to say.
So when you say they are making an effort to resolve this thing, it is not true.
Okay, then I suppose what I meant to say was that we have reported the matter to Yoko.
Before all of this unfolded in the early hours of the sitting, a spectacle actually happened when the Minister of Health as well as his two deputies were announced to be absent at the sitting.
And also the minister is not here. We have colleagues who have contested this election and they are here. If they have lost, there are people who have lost and they are here. Two of the deputies lost, that's fine. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't work. Are they resigning? And if they're not resigning, they should be here. So I don't think that that's a good excuse. Because they have gone to contest elections, they are unable to come. I mean, you should get a different excuse. And the worst of it is that the chief director is not here. I mean, you're not taking us serious.
The committee resumes to continue with the proceedings. Reporting from Parliament here in Accra, my name is James Aveji for Joy News.
Special Prosecutor Kisi Ajabeng has expressed grave concern about Ghana's fight against corruption as the country scores 43 on the Corruption Perception Index for the fourth consecutive time. A 2023 roundtable discussion on the latest corruption perception report, the OSP called for the establishment of anti-corruption courts that will prosecute persons caught engaging in the practice if the country is serious about fighting the menace.
Ghana has for the past 4 years scored 43 on the Corruption Perception Index. This year's score means the country placed 70th out of 180 countries ranked. The nation's static rank has led stakeholders to raise concerns about Ghana's efforts in fighting corruption. At a roundtable discussion on the 2023 Corruption Index, Special Prosecutor Kisi Ajabeng proposed the establishment of anti-corruption courts to fast-track the prosecution of corruption cases.
If we stifle truth and we place no premium on integrity, we dim the light of justice and we darken the scourge of corruption. That is to say, the absence of truth and integrity are the bedrocks of corruption. May we assure anti-corruption law enforcement institutions the flow of adequate resources. May we assure, in actual practice, the independence of the judiciary. May we assure that judges would adjudicate with boldness without fear of reprisals. May we assure that judges would adjudicate without fear of compromising their promotion and advancement. May we set up a specialized anti-corruption court manned by especially trained judges in the field to swiftly and efficiently deal with corruption cases.
Executive Director of Economic and Organized Crime Office Yoko, Mamiya Tiwa Adodankwa, says Ghanaians should be deliberate in fighting corruption, a step she believes will go a long way to help curb the menace.
Story of somebody who requested for help on Momo, and I agreed, a student. And the person, after when I agreed and the person said I should send per the Momo, she called again to say, I'm owing on my Momo, so don't send the money on it. Otherwise they will take it. But I still did. The point is that this person doesn't know that a profit which will affect the tax that they have to pay to the state. So the little things that we do, if we really know the implication and its impact on everything.
Chief of Staff Fremo Selpari, who was also present at the event, touted the strides made by the Akufo-Addo-led administration, claiming that significant progress has been made in the fight against corruption since 2017.
Since the inception of His Excellency President Akufo-Addo's government in 2017, the fight against corruption has seen a tremendous progress through the establishment of systems for deterrence, means of detection, undertaking of smooth investigations, and establishment of a sound vehicle for prosecution and punishment in a fair and just manner. Records show that governments have since 2017 undertaken some of the boldest initiatives since independence to reform the public sector and strengthen the capacity of institutions to tackle corruption.
Despite its score of 43, Ghana performed better than 39 other sub-Saharan African countries, including neighbors Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire.
To the education sector, authorities at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have closed down the university's basic school indefinitely as educational workers strike bites hard on campus. Teachers and Educational Workers Union of the Trades Union Congress, Senior Staff Association, and the Ghana Association of Universities Administration have all laid down their tools for poor working conditions. But negotiations have stalled for about 3 weeks now. Authorities are worried that the situation, if not addressed, could negatively impact academic work. Nana Boachi Dankwa Yadom has more in the following report.
It's been 3 weeks since the Teachers and Educational Workers Union of the Trades Union Congress, the Senior Staff Association, and the Ghana Association of University Administrators laid down their tools over poor working conditions. The failure of the government to reach an amicable settlement with the striking workers appears to have compounded the situation as the industrial action takes a toll on activities on campus. Authorities at KNUST announced the indefinite closure of the university's basic school. Here is University Relations Officer Dr. Norris Bakwin expressing the university's frustration over the unaddressed educational workers' strike.
It has become painful as it is. The management has no other choice but to close down the basic school. And we know it's going to have effect on parents because some of them are having to go to work. Some have to attend to other businesses, but they have to be home, which means that they have to look for other alternatives to take care of their case at home. It has complicated. There's already a precarious situation in the university when the senior staff declare strike. We appeal for a quick resolution to the various issues that the various groups have raised, so that it doesn't affect the academic calendar.
Meanwhile, parents and their wards continue to rue the closure of the school. They say they are being forced to spend more on home tuition.
I'm hoping they sit on a negotiation table as soon as possible to solve this pending issue.
Government must conclude its negotiations with the striking union. My children had to join me to make sales today because the school has been closed down.
Well, government is expected to fasten its negotiation with the striking unions to ensure that the KNUST Basic School is reopened for pupils. For Joy News, my name is Nana Boachitankwa-Yadom, Kumasi.
Now, flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, says the MPP government has nothing more to offer with 10 months to elections. According to him, after the New Patriotic Party deceived the people for political power, they have failed to ease the burden of the people. Speaking at a town hall meeting in Frankedia, the former president, staging a comeback, promised to revive the industries in the area if successful in the search for another term. Nanaya Ojima is in the Eastern region with the NDC flag bearer and has filed this report.
The NDC is touring the Eastern region as part of the Building Ghana tour. The tour, which is seeking the opinions of Ghanaians enjoying the party's manifesto, met labor unions in the region. At the town hall meeting, issues of corruption were raised by the electorate. According to the Corruption Perception Index 2023, Ghana maintained its score of 43 for the fourth consecutive year. The country ranks 70th out of 180 countries and territories assessed in the CPI.
One would have thought that the corruption cases were enough, but it's even made Ghanaians numb. Now Ghanaians are not surprised again. The corruption does not shock Ghanaians the way it used to shock us. Today, when there's a scandal, people are like, oh, because they are all tired. Everybody is tired. And so even in the twilight, when you're about to exit office, you are still coming up with schemes to steal Ghanaians' money. And this is at a time when we have the Office of Special Prosecutor. Suddenly they say Special Prosecutor should return all Cecilia Dapa's money to her. And then the explanation they give is that Special Prosecutor cannot handle money laundering cases and what. So what was the need to establish the Office of the Special Prosecutor? I know why it was established. It was established to go after political opponents. Unfortunately, the Special Prosecutor is investigating everybody. And now that is biting their own people, suddenly the Special Prosecutor can't do this. You can't seize this person's money. The last time he was very frustrated.
Meanwhile, the NDC has indicated willingness to investigate the disbursement of COVID-19 funds. Mr. Mahama further insisted on dealing with corruption menace, indicating plans to discontinue the SML arrangement in the oil sector.
An NDC government under me will not accept or recognize this SML agreement. We will not accept or recognize the SML agreement. Parliament is investigating it. The president has hurriedly gone to get KPMG to come and audit it. Whatever audit they do, I say we won't accept or respect any agreement with SML. COVID was an adversity, but it was also an opportunity because plenty people poured money into Ghana. The IMF gave us $1 billion free. Then they gave us another $1 billion special long-term loan. One was SGR, one was a long-term low-interest loan. $2 billion. World Bank gave us almost $1 billion, $3 billion. Then aside from that, Bank of Ghana gave 10 billion cedis and another 10 billion cedis. African Development Bank gave us money. GIZ gave us money. China gave us money. And the Auditor General audited it and said the money was misused.
For Joy News, Nana Ojima reporting.
On that note, we end the bulletin for the AM News. But stay for the news review. Political scientist and director of Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asasante, will join Benjamin Akakpo to review the news in a bit. This is the AM Show with me, Sweetie Abochi, and Benjamin Akakpo. Do not go anywhere.
Thank you very much for staying with us on the AM Show. I'd like to kickstart the news review by celebrating my team. It's a lovely team. We've had some good laughter this morning right before I came on air. And I'd like to celebrate Yao For Sin. Yao For Sin, my director. He knows I'm up to mischief. I'd like to celebrate Derek Ekosam. No one calls him Derek. In here, we all call him Eko, Nicholas Yamwa, and the rest of the crew. Yes, I've forgotten some of the names, but sound technician, the camera people, you don't see them, but every day they are ensuring that I'm looking good on air, and everyone who makes the show happen, including national service personnel and interns. We have a fantastic team here. I have to say it today, and I feel truly blessed. So I love you guys. Anyway, let's settle now for the news review right here on the AM Show. It's brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And they're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. What's the state of your prostate? Do you know? Take care of yourself. You want to live long. This temple is God's. Make the most of it. If you're a woman, what's your fertility like? Many women are walking around with so many complications with their fertility. They'll never check it out. They get married or they want to start giving birth and then they realize, whoa, all of this was going on. Why wait? That's why I'm proffering for you Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Just make your way to any of their branches and they'll screen you for these for free. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra, they can be found at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. There's Kumasi Kronumabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Asiaman Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Just the start, though, of the news review, and I am joined by, you know how we do it on a Wednesday morning, Dr. Kwame Asasante. He's a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Doc, you're looking beautiful this morning. Very handsome in your elegant dress. And I'm sure all those books behind you, you've likely read a lot of them. Good morning.
Lots. Good morning, Ben. How are you, my brother?
I hope you're well, Doc.
I'm good. I'm very well.
Okay. The sound is a bit low. I think we'll try to get it up. I want to start on an interesting note. Football. I've noticed that in this AFCON, I don't know whether you followed, there's been talk about the $8.5 million that were budgeted for our Black Stars. And people have said that, look, incrementally, we've been throwing money away, throwing away good money after bad business or bad sports. And that there are other sports that also need attention. Even boxing. Boxing is struggling. The last I remember, even the person who won bronze for us in the last Olympics had some promises not fulfilled to him. The last I checked, scholarships and some sum of money that the president had promised him, among others. But if you look at this sum of money and the justifications I've heard some EXCO members give, that, Okujato Ablakwa shouldn't bring it up because during their term, they were also known for giving hefty sums, pumping hefty sums into this. But wait, what were the results? And two, do two wrongs make a right? No. Do two wrongs make a right. People have said things like, oh, it's to divert attention from the MPP primaries. The same MPP primaries that we flogged over and again. I don't get it. When you talk about accountability for money in this country, people come up with all sorts of, pardon my language, silly reasons sometimes. Value for money. I'm not blaming the stars individually. I'm blaming the entire setup. The GFA, the systems that are not in place, coaches not given a free hand, manipulation, all kinds of things. If the Black Stars had gone to the next stage, 30,000 per player, 60,000 per member of the technical team, it doesn't make sense to me. But that's what it is. In the interim, I like how this AFCON is going because it is peppering all the known football nations, apart from Nigeria and the Ivory Coast. And the Ivory Coast went through by the skin of their teeth, who have progressed to the next stage. All the other countries you see there are minnows. From Mali to Cape Verde to South Africa. South Africa was not expected to beat Morocco. They beat them by 2-0. All of those teams there. In fact, interestingly, Doc, before I let you come in, the 1st to 5th nations in Africa's rankings, FIFA, from Morocco to Senegal to Tunisia, Algeria, all the way down to Egypt. All of them are out of this tournament. It should tell us something. That football is no longer a sport where you can go, oh, this is a small side. It's a minnow. It's an unknown. Only 2 countries in there. That is, I think 3, because South Africa won it once with Mark Fish and the rest. So South Africa, which other team is there? Nigeria and the Ivory Coast have won it before. All the others going to the quarterfinals have not. I don't know what your reflections are, because here we go again. They're talking about new managers and hiring and all of that. It's the same fan belt we're about to start rolling. Over to you, and if you have any thoughts after that, we'll get into the papers.
Yeah, Ben, you have said it right. We have got a lot wrong in terms of how to ensure value for money. We are not interested in that. You said it right. Issue of accountability is no. Meanwhile, we have a constitution which says in the preamble that anybody holding any public office must make yourself available for accountability one day. But where are we coming from? Are we not the people who voted massively to support the constitution to come into effect? We threw a lot of good money away, and sometimes careless, management of the people, resources, and all that. When I was a little boy at the Kwapong, they used to play this zonal competition, district zones, national and all that, and they get the best teams ready. So you can have, so many groups who are ready to fit into all manner of groups.
Well, there appears to be a challenge with Doc's feed. We'll try to remedy that. I'm sure it's an internet connectivity challenge. But you watching me this morning, what do you think? What do you think? Because if there are problems, it's either leadership is solving the problem or it is a part of the problem. Our football has dwindled over the last how many years? It's a conversation we ought to have. Everything broke, country broke. The Black Stars also can be broke. In fact, they are broken. The country is broken. The Black Stars are broken. No joy anywhere. Replicating the words of our president back then. He spoke about economy gone bust and everything. Even the Black Stars, no win. Anyway, so we'll get into some of those interesting stories, but let me get into some of the headlines before Doc reconnects. 2.5 years after moving traders, Agbogloshi land lies waste, open defecation, refuse dumping taking over. I am particularly disappointed in this because back then when this happened, I went to the news site and I hear they are doing brisk business at the news site, that things are actually going well, which I am happy about. But to find out that the Agbogloshi, where they were evicted from, is not being put to the best of use. Looking at the vast expanse of land makes me wonder why we even do these things. So that is the first story, which I will get into briefly when Doc reconnects with me. Then there's GHS, Interpol chase study leave defaulters. Then there's indigenous businesses critical to economic revival. That's according to John Mahama. December polls, don't sell your conscience to politicians. Reverend Dr. Markwe tells voters, I don't care, I don't care, NDC or MPP, they matter not. It is about what they can bring to bear. And even if not the NDC and the MPP, there are other parties that are coming up, other people, other individuals who want to lead this country. Why don't we give some of them a chance rather than continue with this reckless, aimless fan belt of electing people who come and do practically nothing? Prestia Bogosu Mine Not Under Care Maintenance Minerals Commission says so. On the back page, Ivorians eye further AFCON glory, and Ghana secure $700,000 share of AFCON prize money. I'll bring you details of that. Doc, are you back with me? Hello, Doc.
With you.
Okay, good to hear. So I was just, maybe before you go on, I was just reading this story. It feeds into the Black Stars issue, so I'll just take it and then you can react. Ghana's Black Stars are one of two teams set to receive a $700,000 consolation prize following their third place finish in Group B of the 2023 African Cup of Nations. Despite falling short of qualification for the knockout stages, their performance secured a share of the tournament's $34.6 million prize money. That is in dollars. The Black Stars' journey in the tournament included a 2-1 loss. I mean, let's not go there. I'll remind you of your pains. So let me leave it there. But the 4 losing quarterfinalists will each receive $1.3 million. The 2 losing semifinalists will be granted $2.5 million. And the winner will receive $4 million. Okay, so the losing finalist will get $4 million. And the winner will claim $7 million. And that's what we could have got if we had won our 5th AFCON. Back to you, Doc. Any quick thoughts before we move on?
Yes, I think, as I was saying, we need to ensure value for money and make sure that we get the right manpower to power the sports section, and make sure that all that we put into the development of the team, we get results. We don't have money. The little that we have, we need to ensure that we use them and use them very well.
All right. So I was talking about 2.5 years after moving traders, Agbogbloshie land lies waste, open defecation, refuse dumping taking over. So the 80-acre land that was reclaimed from the onion sellers at Agbogbloshie in Accra has become a site for open defecation and an unauthorized dump site. Now covered with piles of solid waste, the once vibrant settlement that hosted onion traders for decades is a far cry of the lofty intentions of the Greater Accra Regional Coordinating Council when it took the revolutionary action to relocate the traders in 2021. During a 3-day monitoring of the area, the Daily Graphic observed that the land was gradually reverting to its old toxic state as smoke had engulfed the entire area. Although the area has since been fenced, the wall appears only to protect the space from encroachments. Spaces seemingly meant for gates provide easy access to trespassers to aid their activities on the land. The land, which also hosts the old Fadama Clinic, has actually been exposed to a wide range of pollutants, and some members of the public have complained about the attendant health risks to health workers and patients. Now, in an interview with the Daily Graphic, the Greater Accra Regional Minister said it was the responsibility of the Ablekuma Central Municipal Assembly, the local authority with territorial jurisdiction, to protect the land. He said the GARCC had done its bit by securing the place and relocating the onion sellers and scrap dealers. So he says, quote, "It's not the regional minister's responsibility to prevent people from dumping refuse or defecating on the land. I took the risk of relocating the traders, something which couldn't be done in over 30 years. So I've done my part, and the rest is for the assembly to protect the place." Mr. Kwate, I humbly disagree with you. Totally. You've done your part. In 30 years, we have not been able to do it. You came and did this, and you think now, with what it has turned into, a dumping site and a defecation site, it's okay because that falls supposedly outside your purview. Are you not the regional minister? Doc. Over to you.
I think it's unfortunate. If you don't need the land, why do you clear it? Need to allow people to have access and abuse the place. It's not an effective way of managing a resource such as this, looking at where it is situated.
80 acres.
At the heart of the city. All right. Very, 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 it's a sorry story. And I think the regional minister should look sharp and deal with this head on. The blame game will not help anybody. We are going to, be engulfed with all manner of illnesses and all that. And he, as a regional minister, when there is a problem, health problem, he will be very much be called upon to address this. So the earlier he handled this, the better than pushing the blame onto others. It's not good enough.
Now, I'll do some stories from page 13 and then 16 and 17. Then maybe we'll go on the international front. Don't sell your conscience to politicians. Now, the founder of the Living Streams International, Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Markwei, has asked the citizenry not to sell their conscience to politicians by resisting all forms of inducements intended to influence their votes in this year's elections. He said anytime politicians wanted power, they made efforts to induce people with money and other items to vote for them. But once they won, they failed to promote the interests of the masses. Quoting him, he says, "It is disrespectful for politicians to bring you money to influence you to vote for them. When your vote is bought, it is disrespectful to you, and that means your destiny can be bought." That's what he shared. Then, GHS Interpol chase study leave defaulters. Now, the Ghana Health Service is working with Interpol to identify and trace health workers who were granted study leave with pay to pursue programs but failed to return to serve their bond terms on completion of their courses. The move is aimed at compelling those beneficiaries to refund the salaries they enjoyed to enable them undertake their studies in and outside Ghana. Some of the beneficiaries were said to have even abandoned their courses or absconded without any notification. Then there is this story: indigenous businesses critical to nation's economic revival. John Mahama says so. Former President John Mahama said the role of the Council of Indigenous Business Associations in the country's economic revival is critical. He therefore said, as a baby nurtured by the NDC, quote, "We look forward to working very closely with you in terms of how we can transform your businesses." I'll ask the former president about how much transformation they brought to business when he was in his first term. Yes, you did something, but what else happened? How about Dumso and the rest, and how it impacted business? So it's a lot more than just the talk, Mr. Former President. CPA kicks against 15% VAT on electricity. The Consumer Protection Agency has kicked against the 15% value-added tax imposed on household electricity consumption. Any quick thoughts on any of these, Doc?
Yes, I'll look at vote buying and the rest of them. It's unfortunate. We keep talking about vote buying, but the politicians continue to enjoy the treat and then the benefit that come out of this. Once you sell your vote, you have sold your destiny, you sold your conscience, and you have nothing to hold whoever you have given your vote to when the need arises. So we should be very careful that how much is it that they even give you for you to give your vote to them. They are just insulting your conscience.
Yeah.
So vote based on issues, and let us remember that anybody who comes to us with money to influence you is not ready to serve you. So get those people out, because we say politicians are servants. If you are coming to serve me, imagine you are at your home and somebody said, well, I would like to serve you, but I'm paying a bribe in order to serve you. You'll be very much suspicious of that person who is coming to your home.
Right.
The same vein, we have to take this issue seriously, that anybody who comes around with money without telling us how we can deal with our problems in our localities, communities, and all that, vote them out. It's a very simple matter.
Then there is don't sell your conscience to politicians, of course. The bit about the Interpol chasing Ghana Health Service and Interpol chasing study leave defaulters. I'm sure you know about that, because
Yes.
teachers also fall into that bracket.
Yes, I think it's a good story. I support that. They should chase them. So that, because you see, the state struggle more often than not to get resources to fund this type of enterprise, especially skills that we don't have them here.
Right.
Go get knowledge and come back and serve your society. You think you are so wise, you go, you don't want to return. That's unfair. You block the avenues of others who would genuinely want to go,
Right.
but at the time of when they are ready, the resources will not be available. So I am on the side of those, the state chasing those people.
But I also know, Doc, that sometimes these people react that way because they feel, but wait, you see, sometimes with all these scholarships and paid leaves and all of that, they are political. They are political. So members of whichever party is in power would likely benefit more. So they also feel, I am justified. I'm telling you about what some of these people have said in the past.
Yes, you're right.
They are like, oh, I am buying Sika. Say, oh, see a party in a also. Then they get it. So they knew that they got the thing in itself through party orchestrations. So they feel they are not entitled to pay. I mean, that also happened with Maslock at a point. They felt like it's our party, so we must chop the money and we don't have to pay back. That is the mentality. Once you have that mentality, we shouldn't act like pretend. We shouldn't pretend we don't know. This is the reality. So a chunk of them, if you went in there, you would find party members. You would find people directly affiliated to the party. And so they feel justified in not paying back, forgetting that it's not party money, it is state money.
That is where they even get it wrong, because, look, you should be able to give people who are qualified for these facilities. It should be based on merit, nothing more, nothing else. But even if you have given to politicians, now they need to master the same courage as they give to them and then collect the money back. We will look forward to that. And then if they don't do that, we should be able to hold them accountable.
Indigenous businesses critical to nation's economic revival. John Mahama, you heard me on.
Yes.
And then CPA kicks against 15% VAT on electricity. Any thoughts?
Yes, indigenous business. This has been the backbone of every meaningful economy. So you need to support them, inject more resources in for them to be able to produce for the state. We, more often than not, we throw money into this. We don't monitor anything. And then the money sometimes are given to even political actors. Those who are in dire need of such resources are out of reach of them. And it creates all manner of problems.
Hello, Doc. Hello, Doc. It appears we don't have Doc with us. The connection has left us again. We'll try to get him back. Let's try one more time. Dr. Kwame Asasante, can you hear me? I guess the feed is frozen. So let me look at these stories on the international front. When we have Dr. Asasante back, we'll try and get him to respond. Nigeria rebukes states for quitting regional bloc. It's become funny, isn't it? Anyway, that story on page 5. Nigeria has accused Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger of letting their people down by quitting the Economic Community of West African States. It is the first comment from the chair of the economic and political body since the three governments announced their decision to leave on Sunday. The three states were already suspended from ECOWAS after recent coups. But, like you would hear me, my interactions with Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, of course, Professor Enning, and all the others. How about in the Ivory Coast, for example, where Alassane Ouattara has twisted the constitution and gone for a term that he didn't deserve? How about the other things going on in the sub-region? The manipulation. How about how these leaders of ours, these misleaders from Nigeria to Ghana to everywhere, allow all this foreign influence? I am not a fan of coup d'etats. I always say here, I have seen wars before. Many people my age in Ghana, some much older, have not even seen what war is like. I have. So I'm in a good position to say we shouldn't go there. But when these regional leaders do what they do, turn a blind eye to everything that is happening, and these things happen, and you continue to do what you do, and they opt out, ECOWAS is crumbling. That's the reality. I put the question to Professor Enning the other day, and he agreed. It is crumbling. And it's because of piss-poor leadership. And if it crumbles, we lose everything. So Nigeria rebuking the states for quitting the regional bloc. I thought they said they were going to trigger the military option. What happened to that? Fancy talk. South Africa's ruling ANC suspends membership of ex-leader Zuma. Guess what? He's formed the party Umkhonto Wesizwe, which basically means, I read it on the BBC yesterday, I think it means spear of the nation. I don't see it here, but I think that's what it means. And he says, while he says he's going to be a member of the ANC for life, though he's been suspended, he says he has to give credibility to the people of South Africa, which is why he's formed this party. The ANC is very peeved because this likely means it's going to lose votes in the coming elections. And of course, well, this is likely going to be the most competitive election South Africa has had. Doc, so I'm talking about Nigeria rebuking the three states, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. I think ECOWAS is just joking right now. And South Africa suspending, the ANC suspending ex-leader Zuma on the international front. Any quick reactions before we leave the Daily Graphic?
Yeah, look at the ECOWAS story. It's very worrying. And part of the problem is the lack of leadership on the part of the economic bloc. Whilst they kick against some of these military regimes, at the same time, they allow for third-term agenda to fester and all that. You are very close to us, Cote d'Ivoire and the rest of them. That is not to say that you support military rule. I am also surprised about the courage of the three countries who say that they want to leave the bloc and all that. Is it the case that they want a military regime to be maintained and all that? It's a whole mix of factors that is contributing to this scenario that we are not comfortable with. But the main issue is that ECOWAS has lost it. Leadership is in crisis. Right. And over the years, we have not been able to handle issues the way it ought to be handled. And that is what has brought us thus far.
Anyway, in the sporting front, I see my very own Muftau Nabila Abdullahi there with Joy Sports. In terms of the GFA sitting up and the Black Stars failing at the AFCON, he says nothing beats preparation. I believe Ghana's consistent failure in major competitions is due to the haphazard approach to these tournaments. It appears Ghana prepares for these tournaments a few days before the competition, when leaders are actually supposed to have long-term plans with targets to be achieved. And U.S. weapons sales abroad hit record high in 2023. All right, there's also the Pakistani PM and the accusation. I heard that story. Former PM jailed in state secrets case. And he stopped short of mentioning the United States, but he waved a document pointing to the fact that there was manipulation. And he could receive hefty sentences for that. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, fight against corruption. OSP's powers must expand to ensure effective corruption fight. Special prosecutor. He says he should the office should be represented on the Judicial Council, but some have said, to what end? Why? Does he want to influence judges now? So there are two sides of the debate. And of course, that is on the back of the latest Corruption Perception Index, where we are still ranked, is it 73rd or 79th? And we are still scoring 43. 4 years, 43 has been our highest score. Two locked up 45 years for robbing banker at gunpoint. Minerals Commission promises to protect Prestia Bogosumayin jobs. And new Subin parliamentary candidate-elect sex records trade. Vows to increase votes for MPP. So let's take a quick look at which ones will we do. The story on page 3 and 9. So Benjamin Abwaje, musician, has been sentenced to 35 years imprisonment by the Adenta Circuit Court for robbing a banker at gunpoint at Pantang, Accra. This was after Abwaje, 28, was found guilty at the end of the trial on charges of conspiracy to commit robbery and robbery. The court presided over by Mrs. Sedinam Awo Baloka sentenced accused, also known as Rapture. Well, he's received his rapture to 20 years on the charge of conspiracy and 35 years on the charge of robbery. There's also man jailed 15 years for defiling girl in church. A 27-year-old man who had sex with a 14-year-old girl in a church at Soutu Makra has been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. Page 9. The special prosecutor, Mr. Kesia Jabing, has said calls by a section of the public for the office of the special prosecutor to be scrapped were, quote, unwholesome, as this could hinder the country's fight against corruption. According to him, an objective evaluation of his attempts to unfairly and unjustly discredit the OSP and its principal officers depended on whether a person and his associates were at the short end of an investigation carried out by the office. He was speaking as one of the 4 panelists at a roundtable discussion organized by the Center for Democratic Development. And some of the other things he mentions are what I have mentioned to you. Any quick reactions to any of these stories, Doc? Hello, Doc? Well, it appears Doc's connection is frozen again. We'll try to get him back. On the back page, Cape Verde has more to prove, and that's Jamiro Monteiro says his side has more to prove following their qualification to the quarterfinals of the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations Côte d'Ivoire 2023. And I support them. Let them go out there and prove their mettle, unlike what shoddy, shambolic work we did. AFCON 2023, Côte d'Ivoire stand holders Senegal in a shootout. Those stories on the back page. Let's see when we return, when Doc gets back to us, what he'd like to return to. Doc, can you hear me? Okay. Now, the Daily Guide, 2024 elections. Parties want November date. Which parties, though? Kumasi Herbal Doctor dead. Pictured there, Dr. Grace Bwedu. And Men's Gold extorted customers. That's according to a witness. Pictured there, Nana Apia Mensah, popularly known as Nam1. Ghana maintains corruption index position, and I remain committed to MPP. Story on page 6. Find out who's saying that. So let's look at those two stories. The Electoral Commission has announced that about 60% of political parties have endorsed its proposal to hold this year's presidential and parliamentary elections in November. Deputy Chairman of the EC in charge of corporate services, Dr. Bosman Eric Asari, who disclosed this, indicated that at an inter-party advisory committee meeting held on Monday, the parties urged the commission to proceed with a plan provided it can be legally implemented. He added, however, that the majority of the parties agreed that if the EC was unable to carry out the processes this year, it should start in 2028. So in principle, quoting, all the parties that attended IPAC yesterday were for it for 2028. But for 2024, almost 60% of the parties, more than half of the parties, said if it would be possible for the EC to go through the legal processes to have it implemented this year, let's go ahead. I don't know. I really don't know with this bit about a November electoral date. Why? So every time an issue comes up, we're going to change it? I don't know. Any quick thoughts on this November date for elections, Doc?
Yes. Before I start, let me touch on this corruption perception index. You realize that we are simply just talking. We are not ready to deal with this problem. Yesterday, I had the chief of staff trying to justify and all that. She cannot justify anything. Her party has failed to deal with corruption because the argument that they are pumping a lot of resources and all that, they've taken, come out with all manner of powerful policies and all that. Where are the results? Where's the evidence? What we need to do is not to clear people when they accuse them of corruption. You allow state institutions to handle this. You stop buying votes. Politicians should stop that. These are the things that are captured in the data of corruption, and the rest of them. Look at the issue of what? Even deceiving people into believing that you are fighting corruption. From 2013 up to date, which of the regimes have done so well in terms of corruption? The performance of this government has been abysmal from 2017 up to date. The highest they've gone is what, 43%. And if you read the report says that if you have what less than, your score is less than 50, you have serious corruption problem. And what is so worrying also is that they've tied what? Justice to it. That the justice system has also what? Failed to what? Punish people, and that has given people the courage, the opportunity to what? Do what they are doing. We need to be serious about this. That the institutions that are at the forefront of corruption, let them be given resources, let us strengthen them, and let them work the way they ought to. And once you allow them to work freely, I believe strongly we will have results. And then let us not pretend that all is well. It is not. We should do self-soul searching and then come to the realization that, look, we need to fight this battle head on. So far, what we have done has brought nothing to us. We must be able to get to the basis and start everything afresh.
When you said so far what we have done, what came to mind was, we've played Chaskele with the whole thing.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We played Chaskele with it. Anyway, and a November voting date. What do you make of it?
I don't get it. Why do you want to change the date? Why? I mean, they should convince us with very good reason why they want to change the date and all that. What is important is that the Electoral Commission will put its house in order so that when they announce results, they will not come back the next day to write a rejoinder to the results that they have announced earlier on. It creates confusion. They should also make sure that you have document. I mean, you get all the people who are supposed to be part of this process in there, and then listen to them and allow discussion to take place so that at the end of every enterprise, we are able to arrive at something that is meaningful. So far, it's been much of a talk and a talk and a talk. Look at the last election. About 8 people were gunned down. Up to date, nobody want to cough about this. These are things that should worry Electoral Commission. Even though when we mention this thing, they will say that, well, we are not in charge of security and all that. But if the system is insecure, can you organize your election? So it is incumbent upon them to be interested in what the security of the electoral process, because this time around, nobody will countenance any mishap that relate to what election. No. We want to make sure that we get the best election, we are paid for it, and that we need the best for our society, so that the leaders who will come out will be nothing but the true reflection of the people that we put into office.
Right. Doc, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'll just leave with these headlines. No real reactions because we've run out of time. But the new finder, we must trust state institutions to fight corruption. Chief of Staff. I find it as funny as you found it, Doc. Anti-corruption fight showing no improvement. That's according to the CPI. Mishandling of Mali, Burkina, and Niger could spark food insecurity. That's according to Guta, and the Professor Innings have spoken about this. And finally, Today newspaper. Who can revoke government's license? It's Papa Kwesi Ndum who is asking on the back of the GN Savings and Loans bid. And he said something interesting. He said it on Amansan television in Accra. Who revokes licenses of the government when it fails to pay back money borrowed from people? If the government is unable to pay its debt it owes individuals, it simply means that the nation is bankrupt and has a liquidity crisis. Well, that's how we'll sew it up. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us for the news review this morning. All right, that is Dr. Kwame Asante. He is a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies. Before we get into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment. They're offering you prostate screening for free, fertility screening for free. Catch them at any of their branches across Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma Buehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Anaji State, Tema Committee 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiaman Zima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. The top 5 footballing nations in Africa are out of the AFCON. But who is in? Sports up next.
Let's do sports now. On the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah, captain of the Black Stars. Andrea Ayew has taken full responsibility for the performance of the Black Stars in the ongoing African Cup of Nations. Ghana was knocked out of the competition on Monday, January 22, following a 2-2 draw against Mozambique. Andrea Ayew, apologizing to Ghanaians, said that he believed the team could have done better.
These past days has been very difficult days for every Ghanaian football fan and myself. I'd like to apologize for the results in the AFCON that we just exited. We know that we should have done better, that we should have brought better results to the nation. As the captain of the squad, I take full responsibility for what happened on the pitch, for the playing body. We should have done better. We should have made sure that we bring results to our nation. But in football, these are things that happen. These are things that make you stronger. And what doesn't kill you always make you become a stronger person individually and collectively. We are Ghana, and everybody that knows me knows that I'm never going to give up, meaning we are never going to give up. We are going to rise and shine again. We are going to do this as a family. I'd like to apologize again and show our remorse. We understand the anger, the backlash, everything that came to us. We take it and we'll make sure that we put our flag back where it belongs. Thank you very much, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana.
It has been more than a week since Ghana was knocked out of the competition, which is currently ongoing in Côte d'Ivoire. We'll be taking a look at the Ghana Football Association apology pretty soon, but the Member of Parliament for North Tongue constituency, Okujetua Blakwa, has revealed that the Finance Ministry released $5 million to the Ministry of Youth and Sports for the group stages of the tournament. In an expose that he posted on his social media pages with documents from the ministry, he said that there was a breakdown provided by the Minister for Finance, which offers citizens a rare insight into how much would have been spent at every stage of the Black Stars progression, from $5 million at the 1/16 stage to $14 million if Ghana got to the final. He also said that even more bizarre was, despite Ken Ofori-Attah's instruction to the Controller and Accountant General contained at paragraph 3 of this January 12, 2024 letter to transfer $60 million to the Ministry of Youth and Sports in trenches, incredibly, the Controller and Accountant General transferred the full amount into the ministry's account as confirmed by the bank transfer advice from the Controller and Accountant General as attached. And the money was sent into the Women's Football Development account of the Ministry of Youth and Sports. He also alleged that the $5 million was supposed to be about $60 million, but the finance minister rather asked that about 80 million Ghana cedis should be released to the Ghana Football Association, which he says is about 27 million Ghana cedis more than what was requested by the Ministry of Youth and Sports. He wrapped up by saying that it also emerged that there was a separate budget for the supporters of Black Stars sent by the state. Deep Throat sources informed me that the budget was managed by the National Security. He says that nothing will stop him from getting the details and demanding accountability from the Ministry of Youth and Sports as the budget was submitted in the interest of Ghanaians. Now let's take a look at an apology from the Ghana Football Association. It is the first time the leadership of the football governing body is rendering apologies to Ghanaians after a tournament failure. Well, in a statement that was released on the Ghana Football Association website, they take full responsibility for the performance of the Black Stars in the tournament. They say, the Ghana Football Association extends our sincerest apologies to the good people of Ghana and all stakeholders for the recent disappointing performance of the senior national team, the Black Stars, at the African Cup of Nations, Côte d'Ivoire 2023. We understand the disappointment and frustration that such results can bring to our passionate football-loving nation. Our team's performance fell short of the high expectations we all share and take full responsibility for the disappointment. Following a meeting of the Executive Council of the Association and Chairman of the Regional Football Associations on Tuesday, January 30, as revealed by Joy Sports on Monday and Tuesday that the Executive Council were going into a meeting on Tuesday, the GFA said that it wishes to assure stakeholders that the requisite steps are being taken to ensure that the team does well in subsequent tournaments. That is the statement from the Ghana Football Association taking full responsibility for the failure of the Black Stars in the African Cup of Nations. It's been back-to-back AFCONs and Ghana getting knocked out at the group stages of the tournament. Now, at the quarter-final fixtures, we have Nigeria come up against Angola, Cape Verde versus South Africa, Guinea will play Côte d'Ivoire, and is this Cape Verde? They'll come up against Mali. So these are the fixtures in the quarter-final for the African Cup of Nations as the competition reaches its last 8. And 4 teams will be making it to the semi-final of the competition. And these are the teams that will be walking home with hefty checks for their performance in the African Cup of Nations. Now, let's go to England and bring you highlights of matches. Before that, the Minister of Youth and Sports has been speaking. Mustafa Youssef, you would recall that on Tuesday, Joy Sports brought you an update of work done at the Legon Sports Stadium and the Boteman Sports Complex. These are facilities that will be hosting the African Games 2023. The Sports Minister says that the country is ready to host the rest of the continent.
The first organized in Congo Brazzaville in 1965, Ghana, as one of the founding members of the African Games, is ready to host the 13th edition. Ghana will host and organize 29 sporting disciplines, and we are expecting not more than 5,000 outstanding athletes and officials. The government of Ghana, and indeed the forebearers of the continent of Africa, deem it convenient to establish and support the organization of the African Games since 1965. The objective of the African Games are, firstly, to complement the United Nations plan of action to transform the world through the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and secondly, to contribute to achieve the African Union Agenda 2063. The Africa we want. We in Ghana see the hosting and the organization of the African Games as an extreme honor to welcome you to the 13th edition of the African Games.
That's your sports for now. We do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com. We appreciate your time.
Welcome back on the AM show. Now, we talk corruption in our big stories. The first, Ghana ranked 70th out of 180 countries in terms of corruption per the latest Corruption Perceptions Index released by Transparency International. The country scored 43 out of a possible 100, which has been its score since 2020, 4 years consecutively. Well, this morning we discussed the repercussions with Dr. Ishmael Nidodu, diplomat, human development expert, senior strategy advisor to the UN, African governments, and bilateral agencies. We also have Dr. John Osae Kwapong, a CDD fellow, and Martin Pebu, lawyer and human rights activist. But in the studio with me, online, we have Dr. John Osae Kwapong currently. Let me say a very good morning to Dr. Osae Kwapong. Thank you, Doc, for joining.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Great. And in the studio to situate the conversation, we have our own in-house data analyst, Isaac Kofi Ejay. He joins the conversation as well. I see you here with your fly, is it waistcoat or vest? And I told you I would be mischievous about this situation. It looks very good on you, by the way.
Thank you very much. I'm learning from you.
Learning from me. This one, you are in a comfortable lead. I see you with your fancy mouse, your laptop, your ThinkPad. I think we're about to delve into lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So, corruption. Even before you go to what it says, we've heard a number of people say different things, including the former Auditor General, Daniel Yaw-Domelevo, who says he's even surprised that we didn't fall lower. And I agree with him on the back of what we've seen.
I'm surprised too, because there were loads of corruption perception, circulating.
Which ones come readily to your mind?
Well, I mean, we have the Cecilia Dapa case. There were other major issues that shook the nation in 2023, which even caught the attention of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. There's the famous, La Bianca story, and all of those things where there were people really connected to these stories, and then they caught the attention of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. So I was expecting that we dip, but fortunately, we've been able to maintain our score of 43. But I always say that if the Corruption Perception Index were likened to an examination paper, and it means that we failed since we started featuring in 2012. Because you cannot get, your best score cannot be 48 and you expect to make the mark, or you expect to pass that corruption perception examination. We have failed because out of 100, we've never been able to get more than 40%, more than up to 50% in the ranking.
It's always been, I think our highest was what? Was it 46?
48 in 2014, and that's what you see on your screen. But it's always important to do some sort of comparison when we are talking about the Corruption Perception Index. So the first time that we featured on this index was 2012, where we scored 45. And then in 2013, we had a change of government where former President Mahama took the reins of power, was able to improve it to 46 in his first year, 2013. By 2014, we had achieved our best score, which is 48. And then 2015, 2016, a different story started emerging where we started, declining consistently, moving from 48 to 47. And unfortunately, he ended his term with a score of 43. So he takes us to our best score in 2014, 48, and then ends at 43. Now, in 2017, another, change of government occurred. And this time around, President Akufo-Addo's first term, he inherited a score of 43, and his first term, he dropped the mark to 40. started, improving it in his first year. Second and third year, moving it to 41. It was held constant in 2018 and 2019, 41. And we saw his best improvement in 2020 when he moved the score to 43. And since then, it's been held constant for some time now.
And so the claim made by the NDC that their worst performance is the MPP's best performance still remains. For me, it's not even about 48 and 43 or 40. It's about going past 50. I feel that is what we should aim at least in the immediate term.
Exactly.
Going past 50.
And if you look at the ranking, we've improved in the ranking, not because we've improved on our score, but because other countries are deteriorating in terms of the corruption perception index. If you look at a country like South Africa, dipped in 2023, and that gave countries like Ghana a chance to also increase. But the argument or the claim about somebody's best being your best being somebody's, your worst being somebody's best, it's actually it's something that we need to really look at it. So if you just look at the data on the basis of trend analysis, the story may emerge that, we were doing so well under the Mahama administration, and then we've not really been doing well, or the fight against corruption has stagnated under President Akufo-Addo. But if you decide to do some netting of the figures, a different story emerges. So,
which is what?
For instance, 2012, former President Mahama inherited a score of 45. 2013, he added a mark of 1. 2014 added 2. 2015, he lost 1. And 2016, he lost the biggest margin, -4. So cumulatively, if you decide to net how much he really added to our corruption perception index, you get -2.
Right.
Because, you added 1 in your first year, 2 in your second year, improve it by 2 in your second year. By your third year, you are declined by 1, and your fourth year, you had the biggest shock of -4.
Right.
So if you do the...
Had actually lost ground.
Exactly, -2. Then let's go to President Akufo-Addo's first term, where he inherited 43. His first term, his first year, he lost -3 points. 3 points. Second year, he gained 1. Third year, no addition. Fourth year, +2. That gives you a net of 0. And his his second term, which is still in progress or is still in session, is not really ended it. We've not made any progress at all. The net has been 0 throughout. But one thing that emerged from the Corruption Perception Index report is the fact that the Transparency International believes that in Ghana's situation, we have not been able to improve because of the failed judicial system. In the sense that they believe our failed judicial system is providing or is serving as a fertile grounds for corruption to thrive.
Look at red tape in institutions. Look at it's all there.
Yeah.
There are avenues for corruption, glaring avenues.
Glaring avenues, and they believe that the judiciary is not really, helping us to fight corruption where there are loopholes. And in some of their recommendation, they point out that the immunity that judges actually enjoy should be truncated or reduced, so that, you can have that means to fight corruption. But we also had access to the Global Rule of Law Index, which ranks your judicial system. And we saw that there's some sort of correlation between Ghana's Global Rule of Law Index versus its corruption index. So when you have Ghana's Global Rule of Law Index falling, you see corruption also deteriorating in that same regard. It's been held constant for some years now, and Corruption Perception Index has also been held constant. So there's that there's that correlation between our rule of law and then also the Corruption Perception Index. So Ben, that's what I can actually report from the Corruption Perception Index. We've been stagnating for the past 4 consecutive times, and we are still at 43, being ranked 70th out of 180 countries.
Thank you so much, Kofi, for sharing all of these details with us. Isaac Kofi Ajay is a data analyst here at Joy News. But let me come now to Dr. John Osae Kwapong. He's a CDD fellow. Doc, I want to start off with you on this beat. Here we are again, corruption perception index, and it appears there's no joy and no surprises in there. The former Auditor General, Daniel Yao Domelevo, says, listen, I even expected worse. I expected a decline. And some people are scratching their heads as to why we still even managed to get 43 of those points, looking at all the perception in respect of different myriad stories bordering on corruption. But from where you sit, Doc, did this come as any surprise to you? And what do you make of the latest ranking and score of Ghana on the CPI?
It really doesn't come as a surprise. It's the score has remained the same. So initially, when I read the report, I said to myself, on the one hand, we've not improved, which is not a good thing. But on the other hand, quote unquote, the score didn't get worse. So thank God for small mercies. But I think it overall goes to show that we are really not moving.
Hello, Doc.
Yes.
Like Domelevo, were you expecting it to get worse?
Yes, and I say that because if you look at the most recent Afrobarometer survey from 2022 on the question of how well the government is handling the fight against corruption, only 12% rated the government's anti-corruption efforts as very well. Right. So then, and this is just only a year and a half to 2 years late, no, even more than 2 years later. And then there was also a question about the level of corruption. And in 2022, as much as 69% said it has increased a lot. And so when I put it within the context of what the most recent Afrobarometer was able to capture, then you realize that, or at least you begin to expect that the CPI score for 2024 would even decline further. But then again, you're talking about 13 different sources of data. The methodology is a little different from what Afrobarometer measures. But nonetheless, the perception of corruption, in our public institutions, the perception of how we are handling the fight against corruption, the perception of the level of increases in corruption, it doesn't surprise me that we are at 43%. We are scoring 43 out of 100 in terms of what the CPI is capturing. And it goes to show you that we're really not moving the needle much when it comes to the fight against corruption.
I don't even know about moving the needle because we've remained constant. It has stood constant for 4 times now. What do you make of that as well? Because even this score of 43 and the placement on the continent is only because some other countries also slipped further, like South Africa, among others. What do you make of that negative constancy, if you like, when it comes to this ranking?
I think one of the things that you and I have talked about most recently when it comes to the fight against corruption is that I think we lean too heavily on using the legal tools to fight corruption. And I've said this over and over and over again that there's a place for using the legal tools to fight corruption and hold public servants accountable when they flout the rules, and the law. And I've also said that I agree with the president when he says not until you find yourself in trouble, you would not appreciate due process. So yes, when someone is accused of having engaged in acts of corruption, you also want to make sure that you give them all of the due process for them to prove their innocence or otherwise. But that heavy reliance on the legal tools alone and ignoring the political tools that can be used to fight corruption, right? Which is, asking, a minister or an appointee to step aside, to resign, whilst an investigation is going on, or, taking swift action to condemn stories that come up, and not exonerate people until that due process, or at least appearing to exonerate people until that due process is done, for me, is what continues to deepen this growing perception that not only is there corruption, but the will to fight it is not as strong as one would expect. And I think that is what is continuing to fuel the scores that we are seeing.
Well, let me shift gears now and move the conversation forward. Let me bring in Dr. Ishmael Ni Dodu. Doc, thank you so much for joining the conversation. You would have to unmute, Doc. Have you unmuted now, Doc?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I can hear you now. What do you make? What is your general assessment of this latest corruption perception index?
Right. Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. It is very intriguing that corruption continues to be the bane of our politics, and one of the things that is very interesting is to see that we have not moved the needle at all in dealing with the issues of corruption. What I would say that it's also very, very worrying is the fact that corruption is embedded within the state apparatus. So you're talking about a situation where state-sponsored corruption is becoming very, very worrying across the board. When you look at the index as they looked at it through across the several African countries, sub-Saharan Africa, we've seen that most of the countries are not doing very well. Less than a quarter of it are actually making some progress in corruption, which means that the commitment to addressing the issues of corruption is not there, and this becomes very, very concerning when you are looking at it from the perspective of how to deal with the issue of governance and how good governance actually translates into peace and prosperity that citizens want. In other words, because of the state of corruption, our democratic processes, our good governance values are not yielding the dividends that citizens want to see in terms of transforming their life, transforming the work of societies, and getting Africa move forward. And looking at the issue from Ghana perspective, we are talking about the implications of a judicial system which is not enforcing the law. The actual rule of law system itself is a challenge in terms of how it is applied, and the justices and how fairness and justice is applied. And then to also see when you deconstruct it and look at our daily lives, some of the respondents' questions that were posed and the responses that came out indicates that around the rank and file of our society, all facets of society, are experiencing this act of corruption, which is actually affecting them. And what is also very concerning is the fact that significant numbers of respondents don't even want to talk about it or say it because it has become a part and parcel of our daily lives. This is very, very challenging.
Looking at the challenge of corruption, why do you think we keep scoring so low, Doc? Is it because the systems are not there? You would see in the report talk about the unnecessary red tape, among others, which are tools for corruption. Where do you see the crux of the problem?
The crux of the problem are multifaceted. Number one, the political will to address corruption from our society, within the rubric of our society. We don't see a sense that this is actually something that we are very committed to doing. Look at the Cecilia Dapar case. Look at how the case was handled. Look at I remember 3 years ago there was an expose of the justice systems and the acts of corruption that most of them are engaged in bringing about justice. Now, when you have a situation where citizens don't feel that when something happens to them, it can be corrected or justice will be meted in fairness to them, then you are looking at a society where there's a lack of faith in addressing issues that relate to their peace and prosperity and justice. So the commitment is the first thing that needs to be addressed. The second thing is bringing back what I would call ethical conduct in public services, because the corruption is actually within public administration, and most of them are state sponsored. So how do you enforce ethical conduct within state institutions? I think that it is important to have a very, very strong and biting ethical institution, such as maybe a ethical child, something like that can really, really deal with the issues of corruption and ethics and professionalism and standards within public services. Then the whole issue of politics becoming the factor for aggrandizement of individuals. So you have to, the whole notional view that you have to engage in politics or be close to political power in order to be able to have some wealth, to create some wealth and riches. So then politics and its power and influence, juxtaposing that on the ability to create wealth, then fester the whole issue of corruption, because then people are gravitating towards grabbing power and using it and abusing it. So it leads to, there's a complete breakdown in ethical standards, which is allowing abuse of power, privileges, and a use of these privileges to engender the acts of corruption. So a combination of these factors is really what is pushing making it very complicated for us to address it. I would also say that accountability mechanisms are also very weak. We are not seeing most of our media actually following corruption cases, prosecuting their cases themselves and pushing it to the finish line. I would want to see, for example, a citizen or a media who have gone after some of these cases, taking it to court and persecuting it and letting happen. I mean, the last time we saw something like this was when the late Comrade Tumo did it in Ghana. And I think something like, if we begin to see acts like this, public officers will feel that they are going to be held responsible. We also don't see, our traditional authorities or clergy or elders in society talking about the issue, and some of them taking it upon themselves to actually push it to the finish line and getting some people, prosecuted for what they have done. So, lack of punitive actions, lack of accountability, people just don't fear doing these things, engaging acts of corruption, and the lack of political will in the country. All these things, when we put together, is just creating enabling environment that just festers the acts of corruption overall.
Right. Let me bring in lawyer and human rights activist Martin Kpebu now. Martin, good morning. Mr. Kpebu, good morning. Please unmute, Mr. Kpebu. You have to unmute.
Good morning, Ben.
It's good to have you join the conversation. It's the first time this year, and we're grateful to have you.
Yeah.
Right. So here we go.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Down to my question. I was saying that it was good to have you join the conversation, but the cesspool of corruption appears to be going ever deeper. I'd like to find out from you, what are your initial reactions to the latest CPI in respect of Ghana?
Yeah, Mr. Kaku, it appears they've been a bit charitable to us. Yes, because we should have declined at least a point or two. You see, in a country where President Akufo-Addo has made his brother finance minister, we borrow, and then the finance minister's company makes money so that the president's family is being enriched in broad daylight, said broad daylight robbery. For us to have managed 43 again, it's a small miracle. I think the Transparency International need to set up. They probably need to review how they are going about this thing. Because it's never happened that you have the president's family making money at the expense of the country. There's an incentive to borrow, and that's how they borrowed and landed us in trouble. And you're still giving us 43. 43 for what, in God's name? I mean, where? Other, the finance minister, they borrow and borrow so that the president's family becomes rich.
But Mr.
Kwebu, give us 43.
Mr. Kwebu, the CPI, I mean, Transparency International has its metrics, and they go by those metrics to come out with these figures. Are you disputing the figures? It's the same metrics they've used in the past. Hello, Mr. Kwebu.
Yes, that's what I'm disputing. I think the thing is a bit skewed because listen, this is too gross. Gross. Too gross in our faces, Mr. Kaku. You have done shows on this particular fact. We can't take it. Look, this 43, they are trying to be a bit diplomatic. I mean, how? That we borrow and the president's family becomes rich and you can give us 43 for that? Why? We borrow. Ghana borrows, then the president's family becomes rich. The very thing he calls corruption. You see, we're here in 2016. That's why we voted for him. He said Mama was corrupt. Mama had family and friends. It turned out Mama didn't have more than 2 family members in the government. Now we have a government which is littered with so many of his family members. Amwakwata, Oforiata, the CEOs of so many public institutions, right? Yes, he also had ministers. Atachia, of course, Atachia is no longer in office. So many of his family members, uncountable. And Transparency International can give us 43 for that. I think they are being too diplomatic. Yes, so that's my reaction. And you see the irony that the worst mark that Mahama had, 43, that's the best that President Akufo-Addo has had for 4 years. And it's even lucky Transparency International has been a bit charitable.
Well, on that very point, we just did the analysis. If you look at the gains since Mahama took over to the end of his tenure, what he lost, and then you look at Akufo-Addo and the gains he's made, actually, Mahama gets a negative score and Akufo-Addo gets a 0 score. But of course, if we're just looking at the raw scores in 2014, 48, which is the highest we've had in the Fourth Republic, or at least since 2012, when we got on the ranking, till now, you would see that at least the former president has had the highest score, and indeed his lowest is the highest of this regime, which makes for interesting reading. But I'd like to run this question by you together with my other guests, Martin Kwebu. Someone in academic circles, a prominent figure in this country, sends me this message. He doesn't want me to mention his name. He says, "Hello, Ben. I think the interpretations our political elite are putting to these figures are warped. If the researchers were to provide confidence intervals around these estimates, you would realize that the figures are virtually similar over the last 10 years. Thus, nothing has really changed. This simply means corruption has become endemic, and we need to rally as a nation to deal with it head on and stop the politicking." How do you react to that?
Well, in terms of the confidence level, I'm not a technical person in terms of doing confidence levels, so I'll stay from that. But generally, following the trend of corruption, yes, corruption has been endemic. It's not the last 10 years. It dates from way back. Kwame Nkrumah fought, he didn't win. So it's always been there. So to say it's been endemic over the last 10 years is not actually an accurate picture. It's always been like that after independence. It got worse after Kwame Nkrumah's time. Then Buzia, this Nkutuka and Co came in, Buzia, Echampong, you hear in his time, Pautubeji Golf, Rawlings came. Rawlings did a bit better, but there was still corruption. Then Kufuor came, it went up. You know, Kufuor was more corrupt than Rawlings. Then Atta Mills came, and you see, we started going up. Everybody knows that in the Fourth Republic, Atta Mills is the most honest man. You see how it started going up. And so Mahama benefited from it. That's how the 48 went up there, because the euphoria about Atta Mills being an honest man was still there. And it helped Mahama to get the 48. Then after, you see that Mahama's own persona as a corrupt person then took over and it started declining. And then Akufo-Addo, more corrupt than Mahama, has been there at 43. So that has been it. We've as a people, we are also enablers. Mr. Akaku, you know that these ministers come from families. These ministers are brothers. These ministers are our sisters, our uncles, our aunties, our parents. The money they bring home, we see the money, we see everything they do. We are not willing to report. It even rather appears that we ourselves, a lot of us are lacing our boots to go and join. So in a society where the citizens are also very corrupt, this is the situation you find.
That's a telling point you make, and I wholly agree with you, because we ourselves are enablers. Many a time you would see that the ordinary Ghanaian, I always point to this, the former Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, who says he's surprised about this score because he feels we should have slipped or slumped even further. There was a situation where he could have employed his own son. In fact, his son was qualified for the role, applied. I don't know whether it's with the audit service or some other institution. He said, no, I am head of this institution. You are not going to work here. And that would be my stance as well. You can find work anywhere. You are qualified. Why not? He said no. But in this country, it must be, and that's why I've said that I don't want to be in certain positions, because if I'm there and you're a brother or whatever, you come, then I'll have to recuse myself. The law will take its course with you. But Dr. Osae Kwapong, you said something about due process, which the president has reiterated. And I agree with him. Unless you find yourself in murky waters when the long arms of the law are dealing with you, you will not know how important due process is. I understand. I agree with the president on that point. But does it substantiate, for example, his response when Cecilia Dapa resigned? And then he says, you know, the bit about, I trust that your whatever will shine through in the end, that it will be made known in the end. What picture does that paint? Is that not in itself supporting? Supporting what has been done when no investigations have been conducted at the time, when, you are confident in what exactly? So those mannerisms, what do they say about leadership and the fight against corruption? Dr. Osae Kwapong.
Exactly, and that was the point that I was just making, which is when you decide to also use the political tools to fight corruption, which I'm a very big advocate of. One of the things that you have to be very careful in exercising those political tools in the fight against corruption is not to create the impression that you are truncating the due process of an accused person, right? By sort of preempting it to create this impression that, look, yes, some investigation is about to happen, but even before the investigation is done, I'm already confident that there's nothing about it, or you haven't engaged in anything untoward, right? The public is very discerning. They are able to make sense of some of these stories and some of these allegations. They are able to look at some of these stories and say, but it doesn't look right. It doesn't make sense. And that is where, for me, caution must be exercised when an appointing authority like the president wants to speak about an allegation that has emerged. If nothing at all, just remain neutral until the due process is completed. Because it is statements like that that fuels the growing perception that the commitment to fight corruption is not there. Things like that. So you're right. Those things don't help. And yes, we may say that it's perception, but as Dr. Farijan likes to say, in politics, perception is reality. And so you're correct. We ought to be very careful the kinds of statements that we make that seems to suggest that you are, in support of, someone who is shrouded in, or there's a cloud of corruption hanging over them, because again, you start losing some of that public goodwill as well.
Can look at the replication or duplication of institutions. You would note that sometimes a case comes up, some say, oh, it should go before Yoko. Some say, okay, Shraj petitions. Oh, no, let the CID take charge of it. I think we intentionally have a convoluted system so that people can find ways and means of getting out. And the president, in some senses, not that I necessarily support it, has been called a clearing agent because of that. Because before you realize investigations, maybe even Parliament wants to investigate something, oh, the CID has done something, the person is free. You remember the issue of Charles Bishu, who has had his own stint with the OSP and all of that. That's what I'm pointing to. If you have any reactions, I'd take that quickly before I move on to Dr. Dodu.
Yes, and so that lack of clarity can also create that confusion as to who is even supposed to fight corruption. But at the same time, I don't think that fighting corruption has to sort of be the responsibility of one single institution.
Right.
I don't see why, if let's say a Yoku, is investigating a particular issue, that there isn't some element of parliamentary oversight of the executive, that Parliament can't hold hearings and investigate the matter from their role, as one of their, institutions designed to exercise oversight in our governance system. It doesn't also stop even the president from, setting up a committee, so in as much as those different avenues through which we can conduct an investigation or fight corruption may seem to convolute it so you can keep sort of zigzagging and dodging through the system, they also all have a role to play.
Right.
I don't think you want to center the fight on one single institution because of the nature of corruption and the multi-dimensional nature in which it manifests itself in society.
Thank you for that quick response. Dr. Dodu, please hold for me. I am also told that we have Vitus Azim joining the conversation. I want to take a brief bite of what he has to share with us, and I'll come back to you. Vitus Azim is an anti-graft campaigner. Good morning, sir. Mr. Azim, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, good morning. I can hear you.
Great. What do you make? Two quick questions. What do you make of the latest ranking for 4 years running, 43? And the picture doesn't look like it's getting any better in the sense of the perception of corruption. And this crucial question. Yesterday, listening to the local chapter of Transparency International, you would hear the head talking about the fact that, look, sometimes, and it wasn't even that, it was Mami Atiwa Adodankwa, who would say that, listen, sometimes people come talk about corruption here, corruption there, and all of that, but proof, the hard evidence, they don't have. And so you can have the court of public, opinion, but the court of law cannot use that. What is your reaction to these two issues?
One, the performance, even I think that it's still better than the situation on the ground shows. We had several scandals. And so the score 43 is even being unnecessarily fair to the country. The score should have been lower. Because if you continue to remain at 43, when we're seeing worse things happening, it means that we would have even scored lower. But as for what people say, you see, the state resources have been set up, giving resources and the power to investigate allegations of corruption. So if I give you a pointer, I expect you to be able to now look for the evidence. And you have power to summon people to investigate, question them on oath, to gather the evidence, to to now you go to court. So the excuse that people don't want to come out and give I don't have the power to do the investigation that you have the power to do. So what prevents you from using those powers that you've been given, the resources that you have been given to conduct appropriate investigation?
So what are you saying? I mean, in the sense of...
The accountability institutions are just trying to get excuses. They're trying to get excuses. They need to take the allegations seriously and conduct their investigation seriously.
So Go ahead, Mr. Azim.
In order to exonerate the person or to find the person culpable, and if the person is culpable, then you gather enough evidence to build a good case and go to court.
Let me give you a typical example. You remember the issue where some time back in the finance ministry and other places, but in the finance ministry, there were some people who were earning salaries. I remember someone was earning 20,000 plus, another maybe about 13,000, and three of them, they were not even officers at the finance ministry of all places. And they had been drawing salaries for many years. It came to light and all of that. We never got to know who and whom were behind that. Are those some of the issues you speak of? And how do we get to the bottom of that? When these institutions will not give you any information when you reach out to them?
Well, that's why I said the accountability institutions have power to compel the institutions to give information. Somebody prepared the voucher. Somebody wrote the check. The money went through the bank. The check went through the bank. How is this so difficult, even for you and I, ordinary citizens, to investigate this if we have the power? I mean, somebody signed a voucher. Somebody asked that they should prepare a voucher. Then somebody went and took the money from the bank. There are names that came out. How can you say that because I have drawn your attention to it and I haven't provided evidence? What evidence do you need? Because you have the power to even call the bank to give you the necessary information. Control Accountant General, there's a pay clerk. So these things, they are just finding excuses because some of these things involve people that matter in society and they don't want to pursue them. But those excuses, we cannot continue to accept those excuses for not carrying out their work. Then they should be scrapped. They should not exist.
Look at the SML situation, for example, and how it's being treated. Well, KPMG still on that beat, but you've heard from civil society hard on that. You try and reach the GRA for some information as the fourth estate tried. You hit, a blank. You go to the other side, the finance ministry, they tell you we can't release this information to you. It becomes really difficult. But I want to find out from you, and this is a question when we're done, I'll run by my other guests as well. The Chief of Staff, Osae Kwapong, is saying we must trust state institutions to fight corruption. That was her reaction to this bit. She says there's no basis for CSOs and other persons to continuously perceive persons who have been exonerated by state institutions as having engaged in corrupt activity or wrongdoing. She says, quote, unfounded allegations of corruption and perception of wrongdoing hardly aid the fight against corruption. When corruption allegations have been investigated and findings made exonerated the subject of investigations, there is no basis for continuous suspicion of wrongdoing by civil society and other persons who have access to the media. But we also know about the clearing, blanket clearing of people, even when you might even want to call it hardcore evidence has been adduced to them. How do you react to the Chief of Staff's comments?
It's very interesting because she was in civil society. So for her to say this, I'm really surprised. The point is that, one, the investigations are not conducted in a transparent way. The evidence, the reports are not even made public, and the recommendations are not implemented. So why would civil society agree to this? Apart from the general impression that civil society has about these anti-corruption institutions that they don't have too much confidence in the work they do. If they say, like, we can still go back to the Brazilian case, no Australia. You just come out and clear everybody. Nobody is found guilty. Who wrote the letters for the people to go and get visas from the Australian embassy? Doesn't the airline have a manifest that shows the names of the people who went? When they were brought back, what action was taken against them? So I can say nobody was guilty of all these things. So the point is that the investigations are not convincing. Sometimes they don't even make the report public. So how can you expect us to believe you? So it's unfortunate that the chief of staff who was in civil society should be saying this, because she knows more than she should be saying.
Mr. Azim, right before you take leave of us, what then do you think is the way forward? Where do we go from here? We're in an electoral year. We've already seen it. Corruption becomes even more rampant in an electoral year, even in internal elections. You see the throwing around of money. Voters are bored. You can expect more of it in this year. How can we forestall that? Those will be your final thoughts.
It's just a very difficult question for me to answer, because it's an election year. If the president was standing, he would try to do everything to make sure that his party, make the point that his party is not corrupt. But he himself is not standing. But the other side of it is that the party will want more money to go out and buy votes. So they are not likely to stop. Like you are saying, it's going to increase. Look at what happened during the primaries. So it's very difficult for me to say what we should do. You talk about prompt investigations and appropriate actions, but the government is not willing to do that. Then we, the society, we should take, there's a need for change of attitude. Don't ask for money from politicians. Because if you ask for money, they are going to steal the money and give it to us. So at the end of the day, we are going to suffer. Look at the population of 30 million. If you give even 20 cities to each person, you can imagine that the impact of that on the national budget. So, one, we should not take the money. It's not enough to say take the money but don't vote. I mean, you have taken the money already, so the harm has already been caused. So even if you vote your conscience, you have already damaged the system. But even that's a desperate situation to say that, well, take the money but don't vote according to your conscience. So for now, I just don't know what to say or how we should go about it. Because to make corruption unattractive, you must investigate and prosecute and recover stolen money. And our government is not in a position to do that. And all the anti-corruption agencies are answerable to the president, either directly or indirectly. So as they are working, they are looking at the back to see, is this something that the president will support or not support? And so I'm really confused. I don't know what to say we should do. It doesn't look like there's any light in the tunnel.
I'll leave you with this. I just want a straightforward answer. And it's a question I'll pose to all my guests at the end, but because I'm leaving you now. From 2012 to now, when do you feel, you've been doing this for a long time, when do you feel we've had the most corrupt period?
Just using the CPI, we scored 48, I think, in 2014.
No, I don't want you to necessarily use the CPI. I want you to look at what you have perceived from 2012 till now.
My view has always been that with the change of government, every new government is more corrupt than the previous government.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
So this administration is more corrupt than the Mahama administration. The Mahama administration maybe was more corrupt than the Atta Mills administration. Atta Mills was more corrupt than Kufuor, because actually it was, like some have said, it was on the back of Atta Mills that we had the 48 that Mahama enjoyed.
And you see, with this government, the scandals are in huge dollars, not cities, but scandals involving huge dollars, contracts awarded, and some of them, because of noise, they have to retract. So definitely, you don't even need to ask the question. You are in the media, you publish these things.
You are the anti-graft campaigner.
It's embarrassing.
You are the anti-graft campaigner. That's why I'm asking you. So you feel this administration is the most corrupt we've had in this since the inception of the CPI?
I think so.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. Dr. Nidodo, you heard Vice Azim. I put that question to him. Do you feel this is the most corrupt administration we've had since the inception of the CPI in 2012? And he said, yes, I think so. Anyway, let me come to you. So looking at these self-same matters, we must trust state institutions to fight corruption. The Chief of Staff says so. Do you have that trust in these state institutions to do that? We have Iyoko, Mamitiwa Adodankwa is there. We have Shiraj, Mr. Whittle is there. You have the OSP, Mr. Jabeng is there. We have all these institutions. The CID, yet we are where we are. Do you have trust in these institutions?
The answer is actually a very difficult one to give.
And I maybe I should add the judicial system as well, the courts.
The judicial system. I think that the entire system for fighting corruption is not operating at an optimum fashion to the extent that citizens will have that confidence and trust in them. It starts from how these institutions are operating. It is not really whether or not the institutions have the right systems to operate or they have the capacity to operate. They do have the system, they have the capacity. Perhaps there's an issue around the resources that they need to be able to operate effectively. But the challenge is who do these institutions report to? Now, we are talking about a situation where all these institutions derive their ultimate powers from the president or the office of the president. And therefore, they have to pander somehow to the whims and the caprices of the desires of the president. We need to truly, for these institutions to gain the trust of public, they definitely need to be extremely independent. The independence of these institutions need to be underscored. And they have to be allowed to operate in that independent fashion. And that is what will instill the confidence and the trust. Now, I also have something about the penal the penal chain of the justice system. Now, starting from investigation, whistleblowing, are whistleblowers protected whenever they whistleblow any issue? Who takes that? How do you do whistleblowing without being penalized or being targeted by powerful forces in the system? Then you're looking at investigation. Are they in those investigations? What is the integrity that they possess? How are they influenced from the top? I hear things like protocol is saying, or you get a call from unknown figure saying to you, you have to stop this investigation, or you have to do this investigation in a certain way. Look at the Cecilia Park case. Public was following this case with an interest when the OSP took over. Now, all of a sudden, we don't hear anything, and then we hear that he has to drop all the charges. He has to pass it on to Yoko, and this is the end of it. So, the penal system, the penal chain of the justice system has to be dealt with itself. Then you have institutions that need to have the resources to be able to function.
So before you go on, so are you suggesting that indeed, like, the perception is, and which has been voiced by some political actors and even CSOs, are you saying that our justicial system itself, the courts, may be corrupt, may be tainted, and they too ought to be looked at?
Indeed, the courts need to be tainted, need to be looked at. And when you look at, and this is not just Ghana, but all over Africa, we have situations where the rule of law is actually not prevailing in our countries, and this is a very worrying issue, because if the rule of law does not work, it affects even investment, foreign direct investment in their country. It affects individuals' ability to create wealth for themselves, because whatever you create, whatever asset you possess, somebody can dispossess you of that asset without recourse to law, and you cannot deal with that issue. Then we also, just as we have vote purchases or vote buying, we also have justice buying. If you have the money, you can actually buy the kind of justice that you're looking for. And this is known by many Ghanaians. I mean, it's a public knowledge. So unless as a country, we really face this issue and say, well, corruption is a canker. Corruption is affecting every facet of our society. It's affecting our ability to create wealth for our citizens. It's affecting the way our citizens themselves actually have to live as citizens and benefit from the dispensation of good governance and democracy that we have. Unless we as a people have this collective desire to root out corruption, then it will not happen. Because it also starts from us as individuals too. How much integrity do we possess in our prosecution of public offices? Do we ask ourselves, what I'm doing, is it professional, is it ethical? It is not the first thing that comes to our mind when you are engaging in any public services. The first thing that comes to your mind is, what do I benefit from it, from this act? And I think this is really the crux of the issue.
Right. Let me come to Martin Pebu. I hope you're still with me, sir. Martin, can you hear me? All right. So I'd like to find out from you.
Yeah.
Since you're a lawyer, you have a lawyer now being the special prosecutor. Interestingly, he was one of the speakers yesterday, and he said, look, don't discredit the OSP and its principal officers. Give this time. It's only a few years old. Rather than chastise it, and talk about shutting it down, let's rather give it life so that it can deliver the results moving forward. But he also says some interesting things. For example, that to give the OSP more clout, it should be on the Judicial Council. I believe it is Inus Afusei saying, to come and do what? To influence the judges or what? But he's basically called for more powers for the OSP so that it can execute its work. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so Mr. Kapo, I support his call for more powers, right? And more resources. Look, as we speak, the establishment budget has not been released to him. So he needs equipment, cyber, this equipment, etc., servers and all that, to be able to plug in at the ports, Bank of Ghana, check the money laundering and all those things. He hasn't obtained those. So I support that one, right? And even look, a group of 100 lawyers came together and signed a petition. We thought with all the noise, the president would have given him the establishment budget. It wasn't. So we are now about to present a petition to the president to give OSP the establishment budget. So
when is this happening?
So hopefully in the course of next week, the list is ready. I'm not sure about this week, but in the course of next week, we'll deliver the letter. It's all been signed. 100 lawyers have been bold enough to say they are calling on President Akufo-Addo to resource the OSP well. But the matter of the Judicial Council, it's not clear to me. Maybe we need to be educated more what the OSP will be doing on the Judicial Council. Because for me, from where I sit, as I said, it's about retooling the OSP or tooling it and making sure that we also cooperate as citizens. But it's not altogether clear to me what OSP's inclusion on the Judicial Council does, other than it rather creating a wrong impression that he will be like judge and prosecutor at the same time. You see, so the optics don't look good. That is on Judicial Council discussing how to structure the judges and etc. to deal with the corruption cases. It's not too clear. So maybe you should come, let's have a full debate. It's not everything I can understand. But the optics right now on the Judicial Council, it doesn't look great. But I support him that we should resource him well and that the establishment budget must be given, right? And also, Mr. Akapo, let's mention this. Very, very, very critical. President Akufo-Addo must pass the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. He's been dancing around it. You know, he fled from it, and then the IMF imposed it on us as a conditionality when we went to them. And very critical in that bill, we want the inclusion that public officers, when they publish, when they declare their assets, the publication will be available. They should be put on the on website, on the net, so that a citizen in Benin or who can access it, so that if he sees that Mr. Akapo's declaration is wrong, it's saying that that person can sit in Boku and report. He doesn't need to travel to Accra to apply for. So that is a key provision in the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. We need it so badly.
Right. And it's important because, I mean, some of these documents that are tendered, who knows? It could be a blank page with nothing on it. I mean, some have suggested. No one would know. A quick one. I want a quick response on this because we are still in the courts, and then I'll go to John Osae Kwapong. He's also called for a corruption court, Mr. Kwebu. What do you make of that? Hello, Martin Kwebu.
Yes, that one I agree. I agree to the setting up of the corruption court because on paper, it would help to bring about more efficiency. So let's say if Justice Ben Akaku is judge in corruption court 1, and then Dr. Osae Kwapong is a lawyer, what I expect is that Justice Ben Akaku will say that, look, Dr. Osae, I'll be here 5 days a week. My remit is corruption. Dr. Osae, I won't have you come today and tell me that, my lord, I have another case in Sumeja, so tomorrow I can't come to court. Then Wednesday, Dr. Kwapong will write a letter. I need to go to Boku. There's another critical case. No. When Justice Akaku is dealing with fully corruption cases, he also has a mandate to deliver some judgments within a month. So he will put pressure on the lawyers, and then we can have daily trials. So on paper, it looks good. It will bring about better efficiency and faster adjudication of the cases. But in practice, we'll wait to see how it will pan out.
Gentlemen, hold for me. Please don't go, because after this question I'll pose to Dr. John Osae Kwapong, then I'll take your final reflections. But I'd like to come to you, Dr. Kwapong, on a crucial matter. Even as we focused, and I reserved this for last because we focused a lot on Ghana, which is our specific case. But how about broadly? Are we making a mountain out of a molehill when you look at the general African problem of corruption? So you look at the statistics. Ghana ranked 8th in Africa with a score of 43. But that is in sub-Saharan Africa, those countries included in the index. I mean, the likes of Benin and Senegal also scored 43 with us. Ghana performed better than 39 other sub-Saharan African countries, including Burkina Faso, which scored 41, South Africa 41, South Africa slumped, Cote d'Ivoire 40, Tanzania 40, Lesotho 39. And 7 countries did better, including Mauritius with 51, Namibia with 49, you have Sao Tome and Principe with 45. But if you look at the top 15 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, looking at that comparative analysis on your screens now, you see the Seychelles, that island, look at that, 71. Cabo Verde or Cape Verde, the same country that knocked us out of the AFCON, 64. Botswana, 59, Rwanda 53, Mauritius 51, Namibia 49, Sao Tome and Principe 45, Benin 43, Ghana 43. And you see where it goes from there. Are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Are we being too hard when this, in fact, is a general African malaise, Dr. Osae Kwapong?
Well, but I don't think we are being too hard about this issue because at the end of the day, even if there are other countries that are performing worse than we are, it is the citizens of Ghana that feel the brunt of these acts of corruption or abuse of public office, etc., etc. So at the end of the day, the pinch points are felt by Ghanaians, and because it is felt by Ghanaians, then they would have to scream as loud as they can on top of their voices to say that let's keep doing something about this issue, right? Because some of the various acts of corruption has implications even for things like the basic delivery of certain public services. So if corruption is going to deny a citizen that delivery of that public service, then it is something that we have to continue to yell on the top of our voices from the rooftop about, right? At the same time, so yes, we've come in we've scored 43, but whenever you think of your peers in any situation, right, you have also what you call your aspirational peers. And I would expect that we aspire to score higher, right? We would want to be like the Cape Verdes who are scoring 64, the Seychelles who are scoring 71, and not look at it and say, well, there are 40-something countries in the sub-region, we are 8th, and therefore that is, well, we didn't do that bad, it's like in a class, you are 8 out of 42, and so you take your report card home and your parent says, well, Ben, you didn't do well. How come you are scoring 43 and you are 8 in the class? And you say, well, Mom, I did better than, X number of students in the class, right? But the aspiration should be scoring higher, improving, being perceived as a cleaner, as a country that has a much cleaner public sector. Because as Dr. Dodu said, these things also do affect investment and other important decisions that have consequences for the country.
I would say my prayer, you start small. It's like someone trying to quit smoking or a bad habit. You start bit by bit. You don't go boom. I mean, if we go boom on this one, I'd say kudos, but I think we should target getting above 50 and then take it from there. But what it will take is what we don't know. We've fallen to as low as 40. We've hit 48. We've stagnated at 43 for 4 years. But my final question to you, gentlemen, and I'll start with you again, Dr. Osae Kwapong, I'll come to each one of you and you wrap. 1 minute, 1.5 minutes maximum, if you will. Francois Valérien, the board chairman of Transparency International, says this in the latest report. Corruption will continue to thrive until justice systems can punish wrongdoing and keep governments in check. When justice is bought or politically interfered with, it is the people who suffer. Leaders should fully invest in and guarantee the independence of institutions that uphold the law and tackle corruption. It is time to end impunity for corruption. Your final words, Dr. Osae Kwapong.
And Professor Kwesi Prempeh a couple of years ago came up with a formula for fighting corruption. And one of the elements in that formula, he called it the certainty of punishment, right? That when you make it very clear that acts of corruption would be punished without any iota of doubt, you put yourself and your institutions and your public office holders in a position of being, deterring them and reducing the incentives for corruption. At the end of the day, for me, 3 things are key. The transparency of the process will be very important. The clarity of the decision. You talk about the chief of staff saying, we should trust more, we should trust institutions more when they're fighting these acts of corruption, etc. That's fine. I'm not one to begrudge institutions or berate them or, cast aspersions on them. But transparency of the process is key. The clarity of the decisions that they arrive at, whether it is affirming that, yes, an act of corruption has happened or that an alleged act of corruption didn't happen, is very important. And then also the logic of the conclusion. Because I think citizens are discerning enough that based on how transparent and how much information you share with them, they're able to look at it and say, but, and scratch their head and say, so how did you arrive at this conclusion then based on everything that you've said? And that would be my concluding remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Osae Kwapong. Let me go on now to Dr. Dodu. Your take, sir. Final comments.
I agree with Dr. Osae Kwapong, the 3 points that he raised. In addition to that, I would include also the ability to, the enhancement of the entire penal system to be able to function at an optimum level. Also, the other point is the issue of the independence of the various institutions that prosecute corruption. We need to accept that independence. The third is for me, a rally or a mobilization or the raising of the consciousness of citizens to really demand that corrupt practices are actually punishable and they are punished, and the forcing of the citizens or citizens pushing that force on the system or on political leaders to make this act of corruption punishable, I think is something that is very, very important. We cannot leave we cannot leave the whole charge to political leaders because they are inept in doing. They are also very complicit. Some of them are complicit also in this act,
right.
And therefore the citizens' demand for retribution and punishment is something that I believe is very important. That we need to raise that consciousness and get that clarion call very heavily to weigh on the system to make these things happen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dodu. Martin Kpebu, you have the final bite. Hello, Mr. Kpebu. Okay. Mr. Kpebu, if you can hear me, if you could just unmute. I'm just trying to ensure we can get your final bit. If not, we move on. All right. So it appears I will have to move on. Tete Zuta, I've seen your comments for some days now. You've been saying that we should check our subtitles and you point to certain mistakes. We don't work on the subtitles. They are generated, I believe, by Facebook. We don't do that. So the comments about checking the subtitles, we are not in charge of that. Okay? All right. And I'm grateful to all of you who sent in your comments and thoughts on this matter. We'd like to thank Isaac Ofie J, our data analyst at Joy News. At a point, we were joined by anti-graft campaigner Vitus Azim, and then Dr. John Osae Kwapong, CDD fellow, Martin Kpebu, a lawyer and human rights activist, together with our other guests, Dr. Ishmael Nidodu, diplomat and human development expert, senior strategy advisor to the UN, African governments, and bilateral agencies. Well, there's a lot more still to come on the AM show. We just might spring a surprise on you, but we'll be telling you about the Junior Spellers Spelling Bee contest, and later on we'll bring you AM business. But for the Junior Spellers Spelling Bee contest, well, Sweetie Abochi will be on your screens with that. We'll be right back.
Watching the AM show with me, Sweetie Abochi. Earlier this morning, I told you that we'll come your way with AM Business, courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. Now, in today's episode, government says it is working to establish a refinery for manganese production in Ghana soon. According to Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Bujinapo, government, in collaboration with the Ghana Manganese Company, has started engagement and processes to explore various avenues to add value to our manganese in the country. Here's a show called Let's get into it. This is AM Business.
In 2022, an estimated volume of 3.2 million metric tons of manganese was produced in Ghana. This stood against the 5.4 million metric tons produced in 2019, which was the highest since 2009. Government and the Chamber of Mines in 2023 managed to chalk significant successes together, and that 2024 presents an opportunity to escalate and enhance joint efforts aimed at creating the environment necessary for the smooth and productive operations of large-scale mining companies. Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Bujinapo, assured that the ministry will raise the funds necessary for the complete restoration of those aircraft to enable them to contribute to the fight against illegal mining.
In terms of value addition generally, we are working around the clock to secure a London Bullion Marketing Association certification for our refineries established here in Ghana. We are also working with the Ghana Manganese Company to establish a refinery for the manganese we produce here in Ghana. We were in China last year, as you may be aware, and we've negotiated with the parent company of Ghana Manganese Company, TMI, for them to invest some $400 million United States dollars in constructing a refinery in our country and ultimately ensure that we no longer export our manganese in their raw form. And indeed, we also continue to work on local content and local participation through a periodic review of the procurement list in consultation with the Ghana Chamber of Mines, and as well as our quest to ensure that Ghanaian mining companies list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And we take the view that it is only through the listing of mining operations or companies on the Ghana Stock Exchange that we can create here in our country indigenous participation in the mining industry of our country, which will ensure that whatever prosperity or profits arise out of this industry is shared and participated in by Ghanaians. And so we are working with the Ghana Chamber of Mines to have a situation where mining companies list on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That is how it was done in South Africa. That's how it's been done in China. That's how it's been done in Australia and Canada and the rest. These countries insist on the listing of mining companies on their various or respective national stock exchanges. And we want to do same here. But we want to do that in close collaboration with the Ghana Chamber of Mines so we don't disturb the investment climate in our country.
On gold production, the Ghana Chamber of Mines expects gold production in 2024 to exceed 4.5 million ounces of gold. According to the chamber, despite the nation's economic challenges, the mining sector saw some expansion in 2023.
Outlook of the mineral sector in 2024. In 2024, the output of the chamber's producing member companies is projected to increase to 3.5 million ounces, mainly due to fresh production coming from Cardinal's Namdini gold mine. The additional output from the mine, which is earmarked for the fourth quarter of 2024, will partially compensate for the anticipated decline in output of Newmont's Achim mine and Goldfields Diamond mine. The latter mines are approaching their end of life. With a projected output range of 1.1 million ounces to 1.3 million ounces in 2024 from the small-scale sector, the national gold output is expected to exceed 4.5 million ounces in 2024. Regarding manganese production, the planned output for 2024 is expected to double to 5 million tons. So really good projections for the year 2024 for us.
The small-scale mining companies are expected to produce between 1.1 million and 1.3 million ounces of gold in 2024, whilst the large-scale gold mining firms would produce 3.4 million ounces.
The main downside risk, however, is to the overall mining production outlook in 2024 includes the high fiscal and regulatory costs, encroachment of concessions by illegal miners, and sometimes we're not being too sure about policy with respect to implementation of, say, the Gold for Oil program and the impacts on its operations on small-scale miners. I'll go a bit more into details on that. The economic contribution of the mining sector in 2023. Despite the challenges that I've talked about, the mining sector continues to be the backbone of Ghana's economy. Impact on gross domestic product. On the back of the high turnover in mineral production, the mining sector's value added to the economy increased from 9.3 billion cedis as of the end of the third quarter of 2022 to 13.8 billion cedis as of the end of the third quarter of 2023. In terms of its contribution to gross domestic product, the share of mining in GDP improved marginally from 6.5% at the end of the third quarter of 2022 to 7% in the equivalent period in 2023.
The Ghana Chamber of Mines expects manganese production in 2024 to exceed 5 million tons.
Regarding manganese production, the planned output for 2024 is expected to double to 5 million tons. So really good projections for the year 2024 for us. The main downside risk, however, is to the overall mining production outlook in 2024 includes the high fiscal and regulatory costs, encroachment of concessions by illegal miners, and sometimes we're not being too sure about policy with respect to implementation of, say, the Gold for Oil program and the impacts on its operations on small-scale miners. I'll go a bit more into details on that. The economic contribution of the mining sector in 2023. Despite the challenges that I've talked about, the mining sector continues to be the backbone of Ghana's economy. Impact on gross domestic product. On the back of the high turnover in mineral production, the mining sector's value added to the economy increased from 9.3 billion cedis as of the end of the third quarter of 2022 to 13.8 billion cedis as of the end of the third quarter of 2023. In terms of its contribution to gross domestic product, the share of mining in GDP improved marginally from 6.5% at the end of the third quarter of 2022 to 7% in the equivalent period in 2023.
According to the chamber, this will mark one of the biggest production in 3 years, solidifying the country's position as one of the largest producers on the African continent.
Now, if you're a lover of the arts and a connoisseur of language, you're going to enjoy this conversation. The national finals of the Spelling Bee Ghana 2024 are just around the corner, promising a linguistic spectacle with 99 spellers competing for the prestigious title. I'm privileged to be joined by the organizer and country director of Young Educators Foundation, Eugenia Techi-Menson. You're welcome, Eugenia.
It's lovely to meet you.
It's so lovely to meet you. We were chatting before we went on about how teaching is a calling. You've been doing this for how long now?
17 years.
17 years. Yeah, you're a teacher.
Officially.
Unofficially, huh?
Unofficially, probably all my life.
Yeah. You look like it. It's good to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
Let's talk about Spelling Bee. Can you start by giving us a journey so far of how come 2024 we have 99 students competing for the grand title?
Right. So the program actually started so the Spelling Bee calendar year runs like an academic year. So it will always spill over into the following year. So 2024 actually started in 2023.
Okay.
So we started 2023 of last year, and it's a 4-staged program. So we've got the initial level, which is the preliminaries, where we take the children through the basics, take them through training, and then they do an assessment. And based on that assessment, you now advance to the quarterfinals. And same thing, you receive more training, and then you're assessed again after 6 weeks. And if you sail through, then you make it to the semifinals. And after the semifinals, you get more training. When you make it through, you're at the national final. So we started about March of last year, 2023, with over 300 hopefuls, and we're at the national finals now with 99.
How did you get these hopefuls? So how do they enter the competition if it's...
So it's two-pronged. So you either come through your school, so a school may call us or reach out. We use social media. We also do school visits. School visits, especially post-COVID, school visits will have to be via invitation. So we can't just turn up at a school. And then also our website, and then just going on social media to register. Individually, parents also sign up their children, which is largely becoming the preferred option of Ghanaians. We're seeing that parents are actually, which is also good, because really you need the parents' involvement in the program in order for a child to succeed at it.
I'm particularly interested or intrigued that we're doing this because I grew up watching Spelling Bee, some American movie.
You're that young?
Yes, I am. I'm very young. So I'm glad to see that we're doing something similar with the same quality here in Ghana. I followed, from 2022 because, again, Seto. I was telling you about my friend Seto.
Yes.
Anyway, so tell me about returning spellers. And I know there's a success story in that regard by someone called Nadum. Please tell me more about that.
So, well, the way the spelling bee, as you say, you saw in the movie, I suspect it's Akila and the bee.
Akila and the bee.
Akila and the bee.
Yeah.
Akila is now a big woman now and a mother. Makes me feel like a grandmother. Akila and the Bee, everybody knows about it. I think it was released in 2006. Yeah. And then in 2008, we would start running the Spelling Bee. So we call it the Spelling Bee in Ghana, but it is actually a franchise of the Scripps National Spelling Bee of the US.
Okay.
In 2 years' time, Scripps National Spelling Bee will be 100 years old.
Okay.
Ghana is the only African country that participates in it via the Spelling Bee. We've been doing this for 17 years now.
And you orchestrated that?
Yes.
Okay.
yes. So yes, we have the franchise to run it in Ghana. And so basically it's a program that teaches just more than spelling, which ends up being our slogan. But what we mean by that is that spelling is really not limited to recitation of words or being given a list of words where you commit it to memory, because there's a science to spelling, and that is what our program teaches those who come through it. Okay. So the science basically just tells you that there's a formula that if you know that the word comes from the word you're hearing, say kwashiorkor, and it is in the dictionary. So Ghanaian language has contributed to the English language. Yeah. So if you're hearing kwashiorkor, and you're told it's of an African origin, you're African, so you will know how to spell it automatically.
Yes.
But for a Caucasian or a Westerner, the information about where the word is coming from should help them in spelling the sounds that they hear, because the kwa sound can be represented in English with Q-U-A, as in quack.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But if you know it's African, you know that African languages are purely phonetic. What you hear is what you spell.
Yes.
So this is the science and the method to spelling. So we make sure that we take our students through this. Now, because it's a learning journey and not a one-off where you get a list of words, finish spelling and get lost, we have a phenomenon which is called the returning spellers, as you were asking of, where spellers enter the program young, and so long as they have not won, they can keep coming back.
Oh.
And what happens is that because they keep coming back, they get better.
That's true.
And because they get better, they are more likely to win. So Nadum Dakwasari, you mentioned.
Yes.
Nadum Dakwasari is 12 years as we speak. Nadum Dakwasari entered the competition when she was 6 and has consistently been coming back and been improving her performance. She would win in 2022 and go on to the US to represent us. We came back in 2023 and she said, I want to try again. Now, the import of that was not lost on us, because what it meant was that she had to start from beginning and stand the likelihood of not winning.
So when you come back as a returning speller, you don't come to maybe the semifinals or the quarterfinals?
You would come
from the beginning?
No, you would come from the semifinals, normally based on the fact that you've been to the international finals, if you may put it that way. So you would. But the point we were making was that basically from scratch, even if it's from semifinals or finals, it's technically scratch again, considering that you've been to the international finals, So, but for a child who wanted to do this after 2022 was a first in the history of our program. So after deliberations, we thought, why not? Let's let her do it. She did it and she won again. In 2023, she would go on to the US and improve her performance in the US, but hasn't got what she wants in the US, because ultimately the goal for any speller on that international stage is to win. So Nadum comes back in 2024.
Okay.
This year. So she's coming back to give it a go again.
She's part of the finalists.
Yes.
99 finalists.
99 finalists.
Wow. She's a tough cookie, isn't she?
She's resilient.
Yes, she's resilient.
And she perseveres. And I think that those are qualities you need to survive.
Right. So you seem to have a lot of international reputation. Spelling Bee Ghana.
Yes.
Do you have some diasporan children who come all the way down to participate here in Ghana?
Yeah, so we do, this year will be the first that we have 2 children, one in Canada, one in Ghana. We had one in the UK, no, we have one in Canada and one in the US. No, one in Canada, one in the UK. I'm sorry, I haven't had my breakfast yet. So one in Canada, one in the UK. We had one in the US, but for a few technical reasons, they couldn't go on. So this will be the first time that we actually are having Ghanaian origin students who are not based in Ghana. They started in Ghana though, but they relocated and have continued. And again, thanks to technology, you can really join the competition from anywhere. So this is the first that we're going to do. So this year we do have students who are not based in Ghana, or are based abroad, but will be participating in the competition.
Talking about technology, do you have the means to include other challenged, physically maybe deaf children in your program? Are they able to also join and learn to spell and even compete and become winners?
We actually have been doing that for the last 4 years.
Tell me
We've been
about
working with Tete Oklu's State School for the Deaf, based somewhere in the Tema area. And their students are deaf. It's a school for deaf students, if I may put it that way. And we have about 10 of them who are participating this year. Before, the numbers would range between maybe 10 and 15.
How does that work?
So I like that question when people ask me, because what I say is, how do you think they communicate? They communicate through sign language. Sign language has letters or the alphabet. And so basically, that's what we use. So we would have an interpreter who, once we give them the word, would sign the word we've given them, and then the interpreter will now sign back to us the letters that represent the word that they understand or they perceive to have received.
What do the winners stand to walk away with after they're crowned champions?
So this year we have prizes in excess of 200,000 CDs.
Say that again.
You jealous?
Yes, I am. Okay, 200,000 Ghana CDs.
Yes, in excess of 200,000 Ghana CDs for all our spellers who are eligible for various awards. Obviously, the top prize is being the champion, and it comes with an all-expense paid trip to the US to represent Ghana in Script Spelling Bee with spending money and what have you not. We also have goodies from our sponsors, so they get Indomie hampers, they get Goyle vouchers. Ashesi University has also offered us an exchange program. It's not an exchange program. It's more like a camping program where they're exposed to technology. They also will get, we've already enjoyed some of the prizes where they went to Rufus Green Parks to just have a Christmas party where they were feted and had a ball. We also have their special categories. So we've got the Queen Bee Award, for example. All these categories are coming up now because the children are showing excellence in other areas, not just winning. And I am of the school of thought that winning is not everything. It's what you do with the experience. And so that is we've allowed that to permeate how we're running the program. So the winner gets whatever it is they're meant to get, but we need to be able to celebrate other people who are making an effort. So we celebrate the Queen Bee Award would be for a speller, for example, who has consistently improved their performance year on year. We also have those whose vocabulary is incredible and they stand out. And then those who probably the last 10 standing just before we actually do have a winner. So we have a lot of categories and prizes lined up for our spellers, and we're just excited.
You've spoken like a true teacher.
You miss your teacher, sounds like it.
I miss my teaching days, but we have to wrap up. Please give me details on the finale. Come 3rd of February, what's happening, where and when?
Okay, so 3rd of February, this Saturday, it's going to be the finals. So it's going to be a showdown. As you said, linguistic prowess will be on display. These are children between the ages of 8 and 13 who will show us how it's done, how to learn, how to think. And so this will start in the morning from 7 a.m. and should be done maybe until we find a winner. Let me not give a time.
Okay, yeah.
It will be broadcast on Joy News, on your YouTube and your Facebook handles. And we would urge everyone to look out for our hashtags. It will also be on our social media handles, the spelling BGH, whichever one between Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you'll find us there. And we will encourage everyone to cheer these children on.
Yeah.
It's been 10 months of preparation for them whilst they're adding academic work. So let's also be measured in the language that we use. If a speller gets their word wrong, they've not lost.
Yes, they have.
They have another opportunity to come back.
Thank you so much, Miss
It's
Eugenia
been a pleasure
Tishi-Nenson.
talking
It's
to
been
you.
my pleasure talking to you. And I will be there on February 3rd
Of course,
to
Saturday.
support these children. But stay with us. We are not done with the topic of spelling. Right after this, we're taking a break. When we come back, we have more conversations around spelling. Keep watching.
So this is for Naraya. Naraya is getting a basket from Dano Milk. We also have goodies from Flora Tissues, pardon me. Some drinks from Twelium Ghana. Top Choco, a box. She also has some biscuits from Twelium Ghana. A decoder, t-shirt, bag from HD Plus. So it's going to be a feely experience in her home. She also has a bicycle. So Naraya, please take your dummy check. Kindly put this in front of the bicycle so that she can hold her dummy check and take her pictures. So Naraya, your dummy check and your trophy. Awesome. Congratulations, Naraya. Thank you so much. So, okay. So, teachers of Naraya, you can please get the goodies off. Mary. So Wilson will still present to Mary. Yes. Right, so they are done. Can we have teachers from Mary's school packing out her goodies? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The fourth one, Lolonyo Anku. Lolonyo Anku. Lolonyo Anku. Right, so from teachers from Lolonyo School can also park her things out. Atomic Hills. So Gabriel Sapon from Unique Educational Complex. Wilson, please, Gabriel, please go for it.
Uncharacteristically,
Uncharacteristically.
that's correct.
Show you were watching on your screens moments ago is the winner of the 2023 National Junior Speller Competition for Basics 1 and 1 to 3. His name is Kwabena Frimpong Manso, and he joins me in the studio today together with the organizer of National Junior Speller, Victor Osae Kwapong. It's good to have you both in the studio with me. So we just spoke with Miss Eugenia Techi Menson, and she told us that the inspiration or spelling BGH started, a year after the popular film Aquila and the Bee. How did you get started, and what was the inspiration behind starting Junior Speller competition?
Okay, thank you. So Junior Speller competition basically is a program or a spelling contest for basic school children. Our motive was to get the Ghanaian child becoming confident. And also, we also looked at the distraction for school learners because of technology. So we wanted something challenging that could glue them to their books. And then we came up with the Junior Speller. And throughout the years, it has been serving its purpose.
Okay. Kwabena, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good.
Good?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you knew that you could actually win this, or how did it start for you? How did you get interested in spelling?
I got interested in spelling because when the art assembly was announced to us.
Okay.
I wanted to join and try and see how it would be like.
How does it feel to be the winner? You are the overall champion now. How does that feel?
Feels good.
Yeah? What did you win?
I won a check. I also won Dano milk products and Top Choco and Flora tissues.
So how did you prepare for the spelling? Did you have coaches and mentors?
Yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
Prepared for the spelling by waking up early, going to school, and in the morning we do drills.
Oh, drills where they just give you a word to spell and you spell it?
Yes.
Should I put you on the spot? The only word I know off the top of my head that might be difficult is a word I saw in the film, again, prestidigitation. Can you spell prestidigitation? All right, that's okay. You can think of, maybe after the show you can tell me about it. But how was the competition? Did you have any challenges dealing with children, basic 1 to 4, teaching them how to spell?
Yes, when it comes to the basic 1 to 4, it is always a challenge because their concentration span is very small. So getting them to understand the whole concept was really hard. Some of them, even on stage, you see them playing, you see them so happy doing other stuff. It seems with the basic 5 to 9, it is different, but the 1 to 4, it is really tough and challenging. But with time, you see them getting there, because what happens is once you get your word wrong, you go out of the contest, and nobody wants to go out. Everybody wants to continue till the final. And we had more than 3,000 children. So in that case, you have to have a strategy and prepare and be focused.
Yeah.
So that is what gets them focusing, because you watch our videos, you see that when they are going out, they are really crying. They just don't want to. Yes, they just don't want to leave the stage. They always want to make it to the finals, and that is what gets them focusing. And one other thing is, Junior Spela is almost like something of a game and fun for them. So in that case, we get them following there because they want to continue, they want to win, they want to a whole lot of things, and that keeps them. Yeah.
But these are all students. So Kwabena, tell me, how did you balance your academic life, the actual schooling and training, getting ready for the spelling bee?
It was really hard. So my mother divided my time at home.
Okay.
So part of it was for my homework and part was for revising the words.
Okay. Was it overwhelming that you were competing with 3,000 other young people like you?
Yes.
So what was your strategy to make it to the top? Did you have a strategy?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I tried to find the meanings of the words and the right pronunciations.
Anyway, so Mr. Organizer, tell me, how is it that I lost my trail of thoughts there? Can you share some success stories for me in the course of this? How long have you been doing this?
7th year and the 7th year.
7th year. Share some notable success stories for us.
A lot of them. I remember when we started, we used to select students from each class. We go to the school, we let them select the best 5 for each class. Then one day I went to a school and a boy approached me and he said, I'm Victor Abiu. I like spelling, but I'm not part of the first 10 in the class, but I know I can do well. But I said, we are selecting only 5. So if you are not even in the first 10, then it's very hard for us to. But the boy was so confident. So I said, okay, I'm giving you the word list. Try and be part of it. And interestingly, after the contest, the boy who was in grade 4 was able to beat JHS students and placed second. We were selecting only 3 students, and he was able to be part of the finals. So that changed my thought about the whole thing, that wow, then we should give every child the opportunity to be able to take part. We shouldn't look at the child's academic performance in the classroom alone, but we should look at other things. And throughout the years, it's been shocking. In every school, you go there and you get that same story happening. Children who are not the best for the school, they end up winning the school contest and making it to the other places.
Do you think it contributes in any way to the academic development of the country?
Sure.
How so?
Sure. Because we are talking about helping the children get a better self-image.
Yeah.
Number one. The other thing is we are building their confidence. And in everything we need people to be confident.
Yes.
And
especially children.
Children.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so important. It controls every aspect of life. So by doing this and especially making them read wide, as he was saying, he had to.
Yeah.
So you have to read wide, and what reading does to the mind.
Yeah.
So by doing this, it really keep the children. For instance, we have 3,000 last year. This year we are getting about 20,000. Look at the number of children who watch the program on TV, on the internet, and learning new words, learning how they are used in a sentence, learning their origin and all these things. It is really affecting.
Do you have some strategies to enhance memorization for them? Or, Kwabena, let me ask you that question. How did you become good at memorizing some of the words?
I became good at memorizing them because I learned most of their meanings and tried to use them every day.
In your regular speeches in school and all that?
Yes.
So finally, how did you celebrate after you became the champion? What did you do?
After I became the champion, I went out to a restaurant.
You went out?
Yes.
With your friends and family?
Yes.
Okay. That's it? Well, congratulations, my dear. Any final words from you before we wrap this up?
Okay, so Junior Speller is not just about memorization. For instance, we make sure we give the children a word list, but for instance, most of the words Kwabena spelled were just words not in the books given to him. We provide them with strategies, prefixes, suffixes, and how to put prefixes and interfix and suffixes together. Yeah. So when he hears the word, he has to do a little bit of thinking on this. So it is not just memorizing words and coming to show off. No, Junior Speller is different.
Okay.
At every point, we want the child to be able to think outside the box. So most of them were spelling words they've not seen before.
Okay.
Yes, and that is what makes Junior Speller so unique. So interestingly, throughout the years, people have been sending the message across the country. Every year, people calling people tell the program is different, it's unique. Get your word on board. It will really transform your child. And that is why every year we keep expanding. I'm telling you, this year we are going to get about 20,000 children coming on board.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yes.
Do you have any kind of relationship at all with Spelling Bee Ghana?
No.
None at all?
No, not at all. We are different company. What we do is totally different. This is basically for the Ghanaian child to have a defined Ghanaian child who is so confident and who is able to do things.
Congratulations to you. You've had some time to think about prestidigitation. Do you want to give it a go before we go? Okay, go ahead, champion. Spell prestidigitation.
Prestidigitation.
Yeah.
Prestidigitation.
And that's how we wrap up this conversation on the AM show. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and I was just chatting with Kwabena Frimpong Manso, who's the winner of the 2023 National Junior Speller Competition for Basics 1 to 4. And then Victor Osae Kwapong is the organizer for the spelling competition. But I want to quickly say a big happy birthday to Rosemary Dodu from your lovely husband, Richard Dodu, who is a multimedia cameraman technician here. He says he loves you so much and he wishes you the very best of today. That's how we wrap up for the show. I did this with Benjamin Akapo. My name is Sweetie Abochi. Keep watching Joy News, your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism.